Good evening and welcome to the May 15th, 2023 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I am Chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. Please note that fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system here at the dais and return it after our meeting. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Stephanie Soulios is a city employee and the zoning board secretary. Ms. Soulios assists applicants with the preparation of their applications, planning our meeting agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Ms. Soulios does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Ms. Soulios, you please call the roll of the members.
Sure. Chairman Spur.
Here.
Vice Chairman Steiner is excused this evening. Ms. Newell. Here. Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Mullen is also excused this evening. Mr. Millay.
Here.
Mr. Loigitz.
Here.
Ms. Toth.
Here.
Ms. Sager. Here. Mr. Feskins is excused, as well as Mr. Yuko. You have a quorum. You may proceed.
We generally hear the applications in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some applications are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board professionals and board members have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this application. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. The court reporting is done through the audio-visual system, so speaking into the microphone is particularly important. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the interested public have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed and we enter into executive session where board members discuss the application and vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If an application requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your application to another date, and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city's zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will necessitate additional follow-up from zoning and other city staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the application. Before we review the agenda, if you'll please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So we'll first ask a representative of each of the applications to join at the podium. First, 104 Woodland Avenue, Aaron and Ann Karp. Just come up here. Good evening. I assume you're the Karps?
We are.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, I'm Ann.
Just before we run through, do you have any witnesses with you this evening?
We do. We have our architect, Dan Ensign from Mendham Design, and we have Joseph Bacci from EKA Associates. He's our engineer.
Excellent. And then I think you're going to take 30 minutes?
I don't think we need 30 minutes, but I think
Awesome.
we'll do better than 30 minutes. That's what I hope.
That's the goal to aspire to. So grab a seat. We're going to run through the other quick cases here, and then we'll have you up first for the presentation. Next is 7 Linda Lane. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shenbo Huang, Huang, 711.
Excellent. Any witnesses with you this evening?
Yes, I have my architect, Adam, here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it?
That's it.
That should definitely be under 30 minutes then. All
Thank
right, grab a seat. Wonderful. And then 709 Springfield Avenue, the rest of the attendees for the meeting, I presume.
Good
Mr. Weber?
evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James Weber of Alfonso and Weber. We have 4 witnesses tonight. 2 are recalled from the prior hearing of March 6th, and then we have the landscape architect and the professional planner.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Weber. All right, we'll have the carps back up, and we'll begin with the first application of this evening.
And before you start, I'll just swear you in. If you could each raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And then one at a time, please state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Ann Karp, Annenekarp.
And I'm Aaron Karp, Aaronkarp.
Thank you.
So just tell us a bit about the application, why you're here tonight, and then we'll let your experts do the heavy lifting for you.
Excellent. So I'm really just here to introduce us. We are a young family. We've just purchased a home. When I say just, I mean, I guess we purchased it in October. And it's taken us a long time to get to tonight, so this is a very exciting night for us. We have been looking at homes in town for a really long time, and we found a home in Summit that met almost all of our requirements. We have a young family. We have 3 young children, ages 9, 7, and 1. And we needed this home to be a little bit bigger than it was. So prior to purchasing the home, I looked up who the zoning officer was and reached out to Krista Anderson. She was so helpful in advising us prior to making the purchase. And Krista, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. So we got her advice, which basically was ask for as little as possible. So that is what we have tried to do tonight. And here we are. So, just things I want you to know is that we really care about this community. We care about making this community beautiful. This particular home was built as a center hall colonial in the 1980s. And it's like a decent looking home, but the homes surrounding it are really showstoppers. And it's important to us that we are really additive to the community, that we really bring this home up to par architecturally with what else is in the neighborhood. So that is what we want to do. And for that, by the way, while I'm thanking people, Stephanie, thank you so much for all of your help and coordination. I really appreciate it. So really what we have here is we have our architect who's going to take you through the plans, and we have Joe, who's going to take you through sort of the engineering aspects of the plan. And with that, I'll pass it off to Dan Ensign, who is our architect from Mendham Design. Thank you so much.
All right, Dan, before you begin, is there anyone here from the public this evening for 104 Woodland Avenue? Okay, then we should move fairly expeditiously. We'll take it. It's a nice easel.
And if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Daniel Ensign. Last name is Encin.
Thank you. And have you appeared before this board recently?
Not recently. I have in the past, though.
Can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Sure. I'm the principal of Mendham Design Architects. I'm a licensed architect since 2007. I hold a professional Bachelor of Architecture degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I've appeared in front of various local municipal boards adjacent to town here, Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, Madison, Milburn.
Licensed in New Jersey, I imagine?
Yes.
All right, any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
We'll accept your credentials. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, what do you got for us, Dan?
And so I'll just give, before talking about really anything in detail about the house. I'll just give a general overview of what the project is, what variances we're asking for, and then I will go ahead and pass it to Mr. Bacci to give a site and engineering kind of breakdown. The house in question is, the property is 104 Woodland Avenue. It's located in the R25 zone. As Ann said, it is, the house was constructed in 1985. So it's different from many of the houses around it, in that they were built in the early 1900s and have a lot of specific character and detailing and things that you would find of that time. This house, while they tried to approximate some of those things, does not have many of those details. They tend to be more approximations than anything else. So a big part of what they were looking to do was to bring the house more in keeping with the older surrounding homes, and then also do an addition to the house to improve it and enlarge it a little bit in order to bring it up to more current living standards, specifically getting a larger kitchen, family room area, and living space. In the R25 zone, the area of the lot is 25,112 square feet, so it is conforming in terms of size. The main issue that we are dealing with and the variance that we're asking for is for total side yard minimum setback. The lot, as you can see, and you'll see also on the engineering plan, the lot is extremely triangular in shape. So it has a little over 200 feet of frontage, but roughly 47 feet of kind of back end of the property on the rear line. So it's very triangular in shape. And as a result, we have, at the front yard setback line, we have a very kind of wide dimension, over 171 feet. And so the resulting required minimum side yards, or combined side yards for that, at 40% in this zone would be 68.5 feet. The house as it stands right now is non-conforming for total combined side yard. It's at 36.3%, which is 62.1 feet. And the proposed project would bring the house to, or bring it within that of 27.45, 27.45%, and that combined number would be 47.01 feet. If the house were a more typical conforming lot with 100 foot or something similar to that in terms of width, there would be no issue. It's the triangular shape of the lot that is causing the issue with going over that total combined side yard line. The minimum required side yard for each side is 17 feet, and we do conform with that requirement. We're actually proposed at 18.78 feet. And so I'll go ahead and pass it off to Mr. Bacci to give you more of a detailed view of what the site and the various constraints are, and then I'll come back and give some information about the addition and house.
We'll offer our board professionals any questions for the architect now. Understand that you'll come back. Anything you want to grab on? Ed, you're good?
No
Good,
questions.
Pete? You're okay?
Yep.
Board members, any questions for the architect at the moment? No? Okay. And then I didn't see anybody sneak in, so I don't see anybody interested public, so you can switch. Let's hear some engineering testimony.
I'll be brief. Don't worry.
It seems very well choreographed, so I believe.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Joseph Bacci, B-A-C-H-I, 328 Park Ave, Scotch Plains, New Jersey, EKA and Associates.
And can you briefly describe your background experience and brief words up here before recently?
Yeah, I have about 11 years experience in civil engineering, been licensed for 6 years, a graduate of Rutgers University, majoring in civil engineering. I've appeared before numerous boards in the area, Westfield, Scotch Plains, Barwood, Hillside, all throughout Union County.
Also licensed in New Jersey.
Yes, and in good standing.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
So credentials, you may proceed.
So Dan stole my thunder a little bit. I think he covered a lot of the zoning, but I'll go into it a little bit more. So as he mentioned, we're in the R25 zone. The site is shown here, and you can see the generally triangular shape with the 200-foot frontage narrowing down to 47 in the rear. So it's a very uniquely shaped lot. bound on all sides by residential properties, and then Woodland Ave to the east here. I'm going to go to the existing conditions from the topographic and boundary survey. Just quickly describe what's going on the site now. So as you can see, and again, here's the 200-foot frontage and, you know, this triangular shape that kind of narrows where the house is. That's kind of causing that variance we're requesting, that side yard variance. You have the existing two-story frame dwelling here, paved driveway on the north side, shown here. Some other improvements in the rear, a deck, patio, concrete pad, front landing, obviously in the front of the house, with the walkway towards it. In terms of topography, it's generally sloped from the rear to the front, with stormwater kind of finding its way onto Woodland Ave and a little bit into this corner here. Apologies. You guys still see that? With the high elevation of about 360 in this corner here, down to 348 on the driveway apron. It's essentially it for the existing condition. Not much to it. It's pretty standard single-family dwelling, driveway, various improvements around the house, landscaping. Going to sheet 2 of our set, the proposed plan. Again, you'll see the same two-story dwelling here with the majority of the addition, the proposed addition, in this rear corner here. Along with that, additional patio area, a new entrance on the north side here, redoing the existing landing in the front, and then very minor grading in the rear, just tying off the property. We're proposing to remove a concrete pad located in the rear, very minor 6 linear feet of fence on the side here, just to tie into existing fence. We have silt fence noted as required. That'll kind of capture any runoff with sediment coming along this side and coming along the front. And yeah, I think, you know, Dan already talked about this, but again, the one variance is a total side yard setback. We do comply with the 17-foot side yard setback on each side. You can see that line here, it's dashed, kind of just nicks the corner, but we're within the requirement. Same on this side, that's shown here. And as Dan mentioned, it's really due to the way you calculate the total side yard. It's based on a percentage of the front yard, and with the lot being, you know, so uniquely shaped, you're counting the side yard from, you know, this area here, but it gets narrower and narrower. So to fit, you know, a normal sized house there, it's, you know, quite the constraint for the carps there. That really concludes my presentation. There are some comments from Colliers I wanted to address, unless you guys have questions now, or...
We'll let Dipti take the first shot at you then.
Sure.
You want to bring any, and typically, by the way, we condition the application on acceptance of the engineer's letter just to capture all these notes. Do you find that objectionable? That's okay? Excellent. Good answer. All right, Dipti, let's run through it though real quick. Anything you want to put some particular
Yeah, no
emphasis
problem.
on?
If you want to address them, I'll just let you address the comments real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to go through every comment.
No,
You know,
no,
we'll
just-
agree to anything that's
Yeah,
not
that's
commented
fine.
on. I know 6A, there was a question about the height of the fence. So I mentioned 6 linear feet of fence. It's just to tie in the proposed addition to the existing fence. The question was, how high is that going to be? Existing fence is 4 foot high.
Okay.
That's really, you know, if you want to know any more,
That's
let me
it.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
6B, question about, you know, the concrete pad in the back. That'll be restored with 5 inches of topsoil, assuming you agree with that, and we'll add that note to the plan.
No problem.
Excellent.
Put the silt fence around it. That's it.
Yep, okay. Regarding silt fence and limit of disturbance, calculated about 5,500 square feet. So any required soil erosion sediment control permits or certifications, make sure that they get them and are in compliance with that. Comment 12, you deferred to the city forester. We are proposing to remove 1 tree in the backyard. Just for the record, and I'm sure you guys saw, the city forester had no objection to that. The Carps did tell me if you guys want additional trees planted, they're willing to, you know, compromise and if anyone feels differently on the board. Those were the only comments I had that I thought were worthy of addressing, but if there's anything else,
No, you addressed them, thank you.
okay.
Yep.
Just for the purpose of the record, not anticipating any particular impact, negative impact on stormwater management, given the additions? That's all under
No,
control?
we are, yeah, sorry, we are under that 300 square foot threshold requiring it. And even besides, you know, we're technically not required, I don't see any impacts. We're not changing the drainage patterns at all. You know, water's still gonna flow towards Woodland. And, you know, I wouldn't anticipate any negative impact to the surrounding properties or to the surrounding neighborhood.
Perfect. And then the Historic Preservation Commission noted some concern of the impact of the rear addition to the historic 1907 Wallace House at the rear of the property. I assume that's regard to visual impact.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'll say from a construction standpoint, we're over 50 feet away. I'm not anticipating any large construction equipment, probably just those small bobcats you've probably seen around town.
Is there
So,
any concern, though, about the screening? Is it appropriate to include any additional vegetation to screen visually the 1907 Wallace House from?
the area is very well vegetated. If we could introduce an exhibit, I know you have a photo, or Dan, if you want to
You
take
can
care of
speak
that.
to it in your- You can speak to it in your testimony if you'd like to.
Okay. Yeah, but it's very well vegetated in the rear. And again, construction standpoint, not anticipating any impacts, and drainage as well. There's no additional water going towards that house in our plan.
Ed, was there anything that caught your eye?
No, it just seems there is a hardship as indicated by the configuration of the home.
For sure. Any questions from the board then for the engineer? No? Okay, well done.
Thank you, guys.
Let's have a little more architecture then. How do I feel about these? I feel like I'm watching
Thank you.
myself. Yeah.
And I'll speak to the comments about the historic house to the left next door, and we also have an exhibit with an aerial photograph of the vegetation next to the property.
Thank you.
Everything that you're looking at here is part of the package. There's no new exhibits or anything else. This first page is the existing conditions and existing floor plans of the house. So fairly typical center hall colonial. You come in, foyer to the center, dining room to the right, living room to the left, kitchen and other spaces beyond. There's a family room constructed off to the right-hand side with then kind of a small laundry area and garage to the back. So being constructed in 1985, very, very typical of what you would typically find. Second story, very, very similar, bedrooms located up above, bathrooms as well, and that's really the extent of the second story. So sheet A2 is the proposed floor plan with the addition of the first floor. And so there's reconfiguring of the existing main floor of the house to create a better, living area and better sizes of spaces, better flow throughout the space. The garage remains in its existing location and does not get any larger. It's an existing two-car garage. And so the bulk of the addition is in the rear and rear left, which is creating a larger space for a kitchen area with adjacent dining space, and then a good-sized family room off to the left of that. The second story, very similar. There's already existing space above the garage below, so our new addition is just adding additional space at the top, reconfiguring certain bedrooms, and then creating a primary suite with closet dressing area, primary bath, and buffer entrance from the main hall into that primary bedroom. Not in question with what we're looking at for the variance, but this is an attic floor plan. There is proposed finished attic space, and all of that does conform with the requirements for floor area ratio. We've provided the calculations for any ceiling areas that are greater than 7 feet in height. Sheet A5, this is the proposed front elevation. Again, not in question with anything having to do with the land use or variance or zoning requirements. But what is being done here, and which kind of keys into the rest of the house, is based on when the house was constructed. It has a very low slung roof, and also the house, for some reason, was constructed not to be symmetrical. There's about 2 feet of space off to the left-hand side of the house, which, for some reason, when this house was designed, was left out. And so this entire portion makes the house, the existing house, and front door and window locations asymmetrical. Part of the proposed work is to add on that 2 feet to create a house that has symmetry to it and makes sense. These are pre-existing one-story portions of the house with dormers and space up above. Coming around the right side of the house, again, the volumes and the pieces of the house are staying generally the same. There's a proposed small entry portico piece on the side by the mudroom. And there is a new dormer proposed for more space up above the garage. And you can see from this view too, the proposed change in roof. The existing roof is proposed to be removed, and a steeper roof that's consistent with the character of the surrounding homes proposed to go on top, and that allows for that space up in the attic level. So these elevations on sheet A6 are really the pieces in question in regards to the variance. So looking at the rear of the house, there is the existing 2-story house beyond. There is an existing 1-story garage piece with space above, and then the proposed addition is set off to the side here. And in what we're doing is proposing to create an essentially symmetrical gable to what already exists at the garage, and then in a slightly recessed portion, fill in that space in between. So in order to take some of that same symmetry that you have from the front, bring it to the rear, and then there's a small patio area with an open pergola that comes out of that, with a door that comes out of the family room, living space, and kitchen to then access the entire backyard area. From a zoning standpoint, clearly the existing portion of the house that's there without the addition is already non-conforming as a result of the triangular shape of the lot and the requirement for the kind of overly large total combined side yard setback. There really is no other reasonable place to add addition to the house. We wouldn't want to go any wider. Coming to the front would not make any sense, and the living space is already somewhat positioned towards the rear with the garage on this end. So it's a natural progression of adding on to the house in order to have kind of kitchen area, family room space. And you can see that from the side. We're creating very much a similar view to what we have pre-existing on the right-hand side, where we have this 1-story element coming out, which screens anything that's beyond it, balances out some of what's already going on this left side of the house. All of the simulated divided light windows are matching, authentic shutters with hinges, shutter dogs. All of the materials, the siding will match the existing cedar clapboard that's on the house. Same with the roofing is actually going to be an improvement. There's existing asphalt shingle roofing on the house. Based on the character and the age and the other types of homes that they're looking to blend with, it's proposed that all of the new roof area and existing roof area will all have a cedar shake or cedar shingle, perfection shingle roof on it. I think really the only thing that's different, and it's more a question of the age or the time in which it was constructed, is all of the new trim will be a painted AZEK or cellular PVC. All of the existing trim on the house is wood, but it's not feasible to use a primed wood anymore for fear that it's going to rot within 2 or 3 years. So looking at what's being done, really it's in question here. We've kind of strived with what we're doing here to add just enough to give them the size of what they need to bring it up to current living standards, and not anything beyond that. As a result of that, we conform with all of the other zoning requirements for the lot. It's just this one aspect of total minimum side yard as a result of the triangular shape. In addressing the question about 100 Woodland, and any tree cover or anything, or the impact that it might have, because that is a historic house back behind there, I do have an additional exhibit of an aerial photo.
You can introduce that as Exhibit A1. We can pass it around if you want.
Sure.
And it's your opinion that the screening will be adequate to shield the residents of 100 Woodland from whatever potentially negative visual impact there may arise from this project?
Well, and that would be part of the argument is, I don't see any negative visual impact.
You're the architect,
And-
right?
Right.
Put yourself in the shoes of the 100 Woodland. It's a larger structure that didn't exist before.
Right.
You anticipate the screen to be sufficient to shield them visually from
It will
light
shield
that
it.
might be cast, or I'm trying to,
Yeah,
I'm
and
reaching here for sure.
it
So
will,
can you explain to me what I'm looking at here? This is a picture of 100 Woodland, and I don't see 104 Woodland at all.
right, this is the
here.
property directly to the left that shares the angled triangular left side setback
Okay.
line.
Okay.
I think the argument is it's so well vegetated currently that this nightmare scenario I'm desperately trying to paint, but not successfully.
Yeah,
Is a non-issue.
okay,
Well,
whatever.
and part of, speaking to part of that, I would just refer back to the existing photos that are in the actual application. Specifically, not the last photo, but the photo before last, which is the photo that I'm holding up here. This is what that house is currently looking at. And then this is what it would be when it was completed. So in terms of historic aspect and visual impact, there's a lot of positive change in visual impact to what, if anything, would be seen. But also, on that same end, none of the existing vegetation that does screen the one property from the other is proposed to be removed.
So in your professional opinion, they're already looking at a thing, but after you're done with this project, they'll be looking at a nicer thing?
I 100%.
There we go.
All right, perfect. Case closed.
Y'all look at stuff.
Okay. Just make sure that gets to stuff
Yeah.
at the end.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
I had one question. It was the one number I couldn't find anywhere. What's the pitch of the new roof?
The pitch of the new roof, I believe, and I would have to double check, I have a scale here, but it's either an 11 on 12 or 12 on 12 pitch.
Okay. Didn't seem to bother Chris Anderson, but
No,
I
it
just
conforms-
didn't see a number.
It conforms with the required 35-foot maximum building height.
Dipti or Ed, anything you care to ask?
I have nothing.
No question. No? All right, very well. Thank you very much. Unless you have something more.
No, just that essentially in closing, looking at what is being proposed, that, we feel that it's an improvement to the character of the existing house. It does not dramatically increase the visual bulk of the house or have any negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood, and that we feel that the variance could be granted without impairing anything from the intent of the zoning ordinance or any real detrimental effect to the surrounding area.
Again, it's only the combined yard setback?
That is correct, the
That's-
total side yard
okay.
minimum setback.
All right.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. You did a wonderful job closing for you. Is there anything you'd like to say as the applicant in closing?
Did you want me to find out where our house was on the
No.
exhibit, or
No, we're good.
No.
We're good, we got it. Cool. Then I'll just offer, again, if there's any member of the interested public here this evening to offer comments, pro or con, once, twice, seeing none. Okay, wonderful. Then before we move into executive session, I believe there's only one condition. Andy?
That's right. Just our usual, as you noted, compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum.
I'm torn to see who can start this. Usually it's historic adjacent, so I go to Claire, but this is side yard setback related. So Mr. Malay, anything you'd like to say regarding this application? No? Okay.
No, we're good.
You're good, all right. Claire, anything you'd like to
Okay,
say?
yeah. I went tromping around the property the other day with the folks from JCP&L who were changing out your gas meters at the same time. And, the house from Woodcroft can't see you. The house behind you on Sherman Avenue is so far back, no one's going to see you. And the house at 100 Woodland is also set very, very far back from the street. I mean, it's not in the visuals, and if it were, this is better. You've got a hardship with the property. This is an easy one to support.
Let's work no harder than we need to. So we want to recognize the regular lot shape as a hardship. I would recognize as well that the setback from the front is already well beyond what the minimum requires for. So not you, but owners, the contractors that originally built the property kind of put you in this position. But notably, I look at building coverage and FAR. You're well under those limits right now. So this is a very responsible project in that respect. There are safety improvements to be had here in terms of the visual, the entryways and the walkway improvements, and then the aesthetic enhancements are surely to be noted, not just because I also live on Woodland Avenue. I'm happy to see this project proceed. Anyone care to add anything else to that? No? Wonderful. I have a motion to approve the application with
I
condition.
move to approve.
Excellent.
Second.
Yeah, second from Scott. Stephanie, a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Newell? Yes. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikett?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Sager?
Yes.
Chairman Spar?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Go with your project. All right. Okay, come forward. 7 Linda Lane.
All right, and if you could raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Shenbo Huang, Huang.
Thank you.
All right, just tell us a bit about the application, what you're looking for, and then we'll hand it over to your expert.
Sure. So I'm Shenbo and my wife Jia, and we are a family of 4 with the 2 kids sitting in the back. My wife is on the visitor trip, unfortunately she cannot come, but here we are. We've been here since 2018, and we've been getting along with our neighbors very well. My wife is also the local organization, Summit Chinese American Association. She's like been the director for 4 years, and she's been like president both starting from this year. So we are looking to add a master suite to our house. Like the house was built in 1968. The bedrooms were relatively small in today's view. The kids' grandparents do come for like extended periods because of long flights, so they usually stay like couple months. And when the grandparents come, they had to share the bathrooms with the kids, and also because the bedrooms were small, so they don't really have much space for themselves. So that's why we are looking for a master. And regarding the garage that we are looking to add, it's also when the more people come to the house, we do see a need that we don't have enough space to park our car. Our current driveway, because of the location, we have only 2 car wide and 1 car length, so it's only enough for 2 cars. But when the grandparents come, we sometimes need 3 cars, and having 3 cars and having 1 car in the driveway is really hard for us to move the cars along. So we are trying to make the driveway to be 3 cars wide. So yeah, that's why we are here today. I do have talked to my neighbors about this about the addition of the master suite. We don't really hear any objections, and the feedbacks were positive. Yeah, so that's my presentation.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions for the applicants on the board or professionals? None? And I'll ask again, any members of the interested public here for this application? None, just tremendously well-behaved children. We'll try to get you out. Oh, is there someone? Sorry, you're blocked behind me.
But I'm just an observer.
Okay, if anything catches your eye, let us know, though. Just try to get into my field of view here. Sorry, I can't really see it behind the board. All right, wonderful. Well, thanks, Shengbo. Let's hear from the architect. That's okay. She seems like she'll play nice tonight, right? But we'll see. Wonderful. Thank you, Shingo.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Please state your name, spell
I
your
want to
last
say
name.
I do. Alan Leonard, A-L-A-N-L-E-O-N-A-R-D.
Thank you, and I believe you've appeared before us relatively recently. Any changes to your credentials since the last time you were here?
Nope.
The
Same.
board would like to accept you
We'll
once
accept your
again.
credentials. Welcome back. All right.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well.
It's been a while, though. I don't remember the screens.
Don't let them distract you. Focus
No.
on this. Eyes in the front.
Should so I marked up some of the exhibits. It's the same drawing you have, but I put the thing on. Should I enter them as an exhibit before we get started?
We can. We'll mark it as A1 and just want to make sure it stays with our board secretary at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, that's fine.
And I also brought photos for you guys.
Those that are not in the packet? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll mark the photos then A2. That's fine.
Do I mark it or?
You can leave it up there and we'll mark it afterwards.
Okay. All right, so let me pass these out.
Thank you.
And I have them mounted as well. So, Shingo said he'd like to add a master bedroom. They have an existing colonial house on Linda Lane. Linda Lane's a little unusual where it's sort of just this L dead end. And so it's really kind of a corner lot, but it's just one road. And it actually is an actual unusual corner. It's a small lot, it's a 10,000 square foot lot in an R15 zone. And so we're before you for 2 variances, for front yard setback for the second floor addition. I'm sorry, 3 variances. Floor area ratio and for the driveway enlargement for the curb cut. So, let me just go to the plan. So, as Shengbo mentioned, they have a 4-bedroom house. The house is from the 60s. The 1 bedroom that we're going to create a hallway is a little larger, but it's not very large. They use it as a study now. They have 2 children. And so, but it would be nice to still have the study. So they're going to be a 4-bedroom house with a study. We're not putting a closet in this. The master suite is a pair of walk-in closets, the master bath, and then the bedroom space, a total of 537 square feet. And so one of the things with it, because they are close to the road, and we need these front yard setbacks, what we tried to do is step it in the fronts. It's just stepped back from the front of the garage on both sides to mitigate the volume. Right now, and if you can, look at your photograph. I don't know if mine map the same way as yours. I should know, but I put them in a different order. So there's a garage view on the side. Right now it's this 31-foot 4-inch garage with a mudroom behind, a laundry room and a powder room. And it's just a very large gable roof, which I probably would have done the same thing. They just matched the gable roof, but it's a massive roof. And so it's not big enough to put anything in the sense of it's a very high, they have steps up to the house. But it's just a really massive roof. I don't think it's very attractive. One of the things we're going to do is change the garage door, extend down the roof, once again to buffer it on some brackets, add a window. And then upstairs it steps in at the corner where the tub is. We step it out as a little bay that wraps the corner, do some roof returns, bring this out as a bay element towards the front, just simply to not put a box on top of a box, because that's ugly. So front, some transom windows. They're doing some other things to the front as well, which are not part of the variance. They're adding a railing on a flat roof, entry roof, because it's just a flat roof right now. And then they're adding this gable element up on the roof simply to improve the appearance, but not an issue for variance. And then the back, the bay, and then once again it steps back in, and we're wrapping the lower roof return around once again to just give the feeling and the actual break of the second floor from the first. So the one thing, and I kind of highlighted this, the tax map in yellow, it's a weird kind of street. I don't know if you drove up it before the application, I would think. At the corner, it widens, the right-of-way widens to like 100 feet. It's this like circular at the corner. And so they're really not, the neighbors aren't on top of each other. So the house, I assume, was approved as part of when this development was put in, because it's conform, you know, it was, I don't believe they got variances to build it originally. And so there's no other place we can do anything on this house. We can't go to the back, can't go to the front. And so we're going over the garage to do this additional bedroom space. There is a pretty significant landscaping buffer and a fence along, I think they're arborvitaes, but they're tall, like two-story, year-round bushes that go along Linda Lane and then wrap along the back of the property. I couldn't really get a great rear yard because you're compressed, because I couldn't get back with the bushes. So I tried to capture in the photographs. These were taken in the winter. But it's this very wide area in front of their house in the corner. And so nothing feels very tight when you're in Linda Lane there. So we think this is an improvement to the property. I think Shengbo said he had talked to the neighbors. They didn't seem to have any issues with it at all. So we think it's an improvement. So.
Can you speak to the driveway? That's the only real question I have. Sorry to jump ahead here.
No.
So I don't want to characterize it fairly, unfairly. It seems like a pavement relative to what it is right now, but.
It is. They can only fit. I mean, it's 16 feet to the right of way, so say 26 feet. There's only a space for a car in front of each of the garages, and they would just like to be able to pull a car over and then still be able to.
So if we look at the photos that you provided.
Yes.
Just where, because I don't believe there's a drawing to this effect, right? I don't think there's a site map or anything, no.
Well, a site plan.
Oh, there's a site plan.
It's on your, it should be on your drawings.
It is on the drawing. So
And
extends-
it's sort of dotted, I stippled in where the new driveway is going to be.
So it's essentially the width of the home?
No,
Inset a little bit on both sides of it?
it's over, I mean, we're coming like 2 feet or so off the back corner of the existing garage. It was simply to fit a third car. Yeah, so that, I mean, a space beyond the door so you could put another car out there.
So it's presently a 2-car garage,
Yeah.
and then we want to accommodate potentially three cars in the driveway.
It's more a maneuvering thing. They wanted the ability to be able to have a car in that spot and be able to access the garage. It's not a very big garage. It has a 16-foot door. I think it's like 21 feet wide. And so for storage, that kind of thing.
Okay, sorry, I jumped ahead
No.
there. Sorry, is there anything you'd additionally like to say before we open to questions?
No, please.
Okay, wonderful. Dipti, or Ed, sorry, I jumped way ahead there. I got excited about the driveway.
Actually, there are other things, Krista, and I'm probably going to miss some on the engineer's letter. There was an error on my part. It didn't
Lot
affect
coverage, I
anything on
think,
lot
or-
coverage.
Yeah.
And when I read her letter, I said, I might have added the second floor figure. No, it's stupider than that.
So what do you want to submit as the lot coverage?
All right, so yeah, I went through and added up the figures. It's 2708 existing lot coverage, and which is a 27.03% lot coverage. And they're going up just the driveway to 2857 square feet and 28.52%.
Okay.
The other things that were asked were about the condensers. And so there's 2 existing ones on this side of the house. They're right against the house. It's 15 feet away, so they meet the setbacks. And they're going to add a small unit for the master, so it could be, and they're going to put it behind the house.
The conforming condition, screened appropriately,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And any plans for a generator?
No
Stealing all
generator.
your stuff here, Dipti. No generator?
And there was one other thing. Oh, the asked about the area disturbance. I'm calculating a little under 300 square feet. They have the paving in full, the one side, the walkway on the other, so it's just to go over the garage.
Is there any objection to accepting the engineer's letter, just capturing all of the notes that Dipti's compiled?
We're going.
Okay, excellent. But Dipti, is there anything that you want to draw attention to from that?
Yes, a couple of things.
You mentioned about the lot coverage discrepancy. I just wanted to point out the plan, the site plan
Yeah.
describes 149 square feet, and I think the lot coverage was 119 square feet, so we just want to make sure that
For the
those are
driveway,
consistent. Is it,
it's 149 square feet of an enlarged driveway.
right, so I think on the zoning information, on the architectural plans, the
Yes.
table, it comes out to be 119 square feet. We just want to make sure the discrepancies.
All right, so I went back and added the figures back up, so I'm
Okay,
comfortable with this.
okay, so it's 149 square feet.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then for the enlarged driveway, there are some units or something?
It's a storage unit.
It's a
They're gonna move
storage
it
unit.
behind
They're
the
gonna
back.
move it behind it. Is there any issue with site distance or anything in the way when you actually?
Turn the
Yeah,
corner?
for the turn-
I mean, there's
turning.
an existing tree out in the front, but I don't think it affects sight.
Okay,
There's like an evergreen up here in the front, but it's back off the curb of it. I don't think- Has anyone had an issue with?
Shengbo seems okay with it, the tree.
okay. The other thing is, I think, just as a condition, we should just have the site plan of this driveway and the curb cut provided to the city.
For the details?
For the details.
Yeah, well, we do
Yes,
for a permit,
absolutely.
if we get approved.
Okay. So that's good for DIPT. Anything I'd catch your eye?
Nothing so far.
We're slowly creeping our way around. We did that. We had a zoning approval for the house right in front of you, that historic home.
Oh, is that right?
Remember, yeah, that was a couple of years ago. I'm showing my age maybe, but I
Nice.
feel like we're slowly rezoning this whole Linda Lane area.
There's a lot of work at the end of the street. It's-
We'll be here. We're here every 2 weeks. Any questions then from the board? Maybe on generator now. All right. Any questions from the board?
So, I'm sorry, what is the FAR that you're proposing then?
It's 29, the proposed is going to be 29.76. Right now, it's 24.4.
But the limit is,
25. I would just add that it's in the R15 zone, and I think my client has one of the smaller lots on the street, so I don't think that the addition itself will be out of place with the neighborhood.
It's your opinion that the lot can accommodate the increase in FAR? It's usually Andy's question.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Is the lot undersized for the
It's
zone?
10,018
it's
square
10,000
feet
square feet.
in an R15 zone.
What does the R15 zone require?
15,000.
15,000.
So it's well
So
undersized.
Well undersized.
Well undersized.
Very undersized.
All right, that's material, all right, that's good.
I'll just note a housekeeping item. Our zoning officer's memorandum notes the building coverage is slightly over 18% maximum permitted, and it's at 18.61%, but that is a pre-existing condition.
We're not increasing it, so I don't think, did we have to ask for a variance for it?
No, we should just recognize in that memorandum, and I'll note for the record that the board can accept that as a pre-existing non-conforming condition.
Okay.
Okay. Other question?
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
did you just say you were asking for 27 point something? or
No, 20
29.7?
29.76. It's 24.44 right now. It's, I think, 5.36, my memory.
Okay. Before we kind of bring the hearing to a close, though, I flagged the driveway as a potentially contentious issue. Just before we get into deliberations, does anyone else want to share any concerns? And I'm not trying to lead you, honestly, any direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of driveway, particularly for a house that has a two-car garage whose purpose is to store cars. And I was wondering if there were a way to bifurcate some of this.
Yeah, may not need to entirely bifurcate, maybe ask for some kind of concession, as especially we're asking for a relatively large increase in FAR, though the lot can accommodate it, which is good. Any other, everyone share that feeling? I don't mean to turn the screws here, but, you know, it is a give and take.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's issues with this application.
I agree. Could we maybe hear a reason, aside from accommodating like in-laws and parents coming to visit, that might necessitate having a larger driveway? I mean, I'm looking at the property and I know the property, and I would like to say that, yeah, maybe there's like a safety issue, but it's a quiet enough street and it's a big enough turning radius where I don't think you necessarily need to have a wider area and bigger driveway, but maybe you feel otherwise.
It was more just a convenience thing.
Is there something that you see in that driveway? Oh, sorry, I'll deliberate. Hold on.
We do not want to lose our bedroom application for the sake of paving, so we'd be glad to pull that out and just keep the existing driveway.
Extract the additional driveway.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be wonderful. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Okay. Anything else draw anyone's attention? No? All right. Give and take of the zoning board. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say in closing?
I think we're good.
Okay. Any members of the interested public here for this application? I don't think so. Shengbo, if there's anything you'd like to say in conclusion? Okay, wonderful, excellent. Then before we enter into deliberations, I believe the engineer's report's the only condition.
We have two deputies did suggest the additional
that's right.
that the driveway, well, actually, no, that's no longer in play. If they're withdrawing the driveway and curb cut, then we don't need to see driveway and curb cut details. So just the one in compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum.
So then, excellent, so then the variances under consideration are setbacks, building coverage. Are we treating that as a variance or recognizing it as
a pre-existing non-conforming use?
The FAR is really the driving factor here.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Who'd like to begin deliberation? This feels like a Scott one. What do you guys think? Scott, what do you think?
I didn't raise my hand. Now that we've gotten that driveway situation cleared up, I can see myself being in favor of this application. They have a severe handicap with the size of this lot. I mean, it's even less than 10,000. I think it's 9 something. And that they're only going to this FAR is pleasantly surprising, and they're not increasing the footprint of the house. Right, so I think they're really getting bang for their buck here, and I would be in favor of it.
Okay. Scott? Anyone else care to add to Mr. Licketts? What do you think, Liz?
I would agree. It's a modest addition, subtracting the driveway, and it's definitely a hardship with the smaller lot, so I would definitely approve this application.
All right. I just reaffirm, right, the undersized lot is a significant hindrance for the improvement of this property, but the architectural improvements are certainly very thoughtfully included. The way it's not just a footprint on a footprint is appreciated, and it makes good use of the lot configuration as it stands today. There's clear aesthetic improvements to be had. We appreciate the concession on the driveway. It's a good kind of give and take. And somehow I'm tremendously impressed your children are so well behaved. So thank you for that as well. With that, when the conditions is noted, we'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second? Okay, Stephanie, a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loiketz?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Sager?
Yes.
Chairman Spur?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Good luck. Let's make sure the marked plans get left with Stephanie. All right, well, we're about an hour in. Let's take a quick 5-minute recess just to kind of switch positions, let Mr. Weber set up, and we'll be back to hear 709 Springfield Avenue. Mr. Weber, 709 Springfield Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Weber and Samantha Alfonso of Alfonso and Weber on behalf of the applicant. This is a recurring application, having previously been before the board on March 6th. At that time, we heard from Mr. Costera. Mr. Costera, Prospect Street, is the proponent of the application that's before the board. We heard from the engineer, Fred Stewart, and we heard from the architect, Dave Robinson. Plans have been revised subsequent to that hearing in concert with the comments of the board's professionals, the board itself, and also the concerns that were expressed by Mr. Bowen with regard to the amount of landscaping at the rear of the property. With regard to the application now, the issue of the floor area ratio. I don't know if the board has seen the administrative comments of the zoning officer, of the planner, and the fact that this had become a bit of an issue. So in other words, do you count for the credit that is allocated for your 24 by 24 space, 586 square feet? When you have a two-car garage, you get a credit, 586 square feet. Our position was, well, we're required to have 4 bays, so we get a credit 4 times 586. The other approach was don't get a credit at all because you're a different setting. The fact that this had come up left everyone a little bit confused and wondering what is the answer.
So what did Krista say?
Well, Krista said, ask the board. Mr. Snikes, ask the board. So we went back and we asked the board. And from the board's decision, in 2017, this issue had come up on the 248-250 property. Same 2 dwelling units, 2 townhomes within the dwelling units. And at that point, with 1 garage, the credit was 586 square feet. And that created a variance of 54.47%, and that was what was approved by the board in its resolution back in 2017. Some of the board members here were on that board at that time. And I believe Chairman Spur, when we had to come back on the subdivision, you voted on that as well. So we looked to the board, and the answer was the board had already made a legal decision saying when you have this situation, this is what we're applying. And as a result, the answer is that you get 1 586 for 1 garage building. You do not get it per bay.
Is it 576?
586, what did I say?
It's 576.
576, right?
Yeah, thank you. And so that credit counts for 2. And as a result, the floor area ratio that everyone has agreed on is 32.05, where 25% is the standard. Of that 32.05, there are aspects of the development that contribute to that. Those aspects include the peaked roofs. Those peaked roofs and the 7 feet over, which Krista Anderson at the original hearing had asked for that to be confirmed, come up to around 4.5%. And then you have the garage that is not allowed a credit. That garage that is not allowed a credit is around 718 square feet, which comes to approximately 2.56%. So the total FAR associated with the garage and with the peaked roof comes to 7.46%. When we subtract that from the 32.05, we're at 24.59. The other aspect is with regard to building. Are there any questions of me with regard to the FAR calculations?
And I'll just chime in, note that I have had a chance to review the code as well. I do agree with that interpretation. It is ambiguous in our code about how to treat these variance situations where it's not just a neat 1 or 2 car garage. It refers only to the required garage. So since there are 2 garage buildings in this case, I think the fair interpretation is that it would get the exemption for 1 of each of those garages, even though they have multiple bays.
Sounds like an annual report item for anyone that was paying close attention.
Very well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
I concur with that interpretation, and especially, it doesn't seem that the ordinance definition contemplates multifamily buildings in the residential FAR calculation. So therefore, that's where we are right now in order to make the proper interpretation. I would agree. I believe they're taking 576 for the 2 individual garage buildings, each one containing 4 garages. So that's where that adds up to 32%.
Any questions on these calculations?
Then with regard to building coverage, the building coverage has increased with the additional 203 square feet that was allocated to the garages, so that there would be a larger bay that would conform with the city's directive to have a bay that's functional. And as a result, that building coverage has now increased and is at 20.54%, where 18% is permitted. Of that amount of area, the 203 has contributed, and when we look at the building coverage here, the covered porch in the front of the properties is included, and then the covered patio at the rear is included. When those are removed, I believe that the number comes down into the 18% range, and as a result, it's attributable to the architectural amenities, having a covered front porch, and then having the covered patios at the rear. With regard to lot coverage, again, we have a little bit of increase because of the fact that it's necessary to have the pavement extend to account for the wider garages. And that lot coverage has been reduced as much as possible by the patios have now been reduced approximately 1,200 square feet. So there were the private patios in the private yards, and those have been reduced in terms of their lot coverage. The patios remain the same, but there's a larger amount of area that's devoted or dedicated to the plants. The other variances attend to the height of one of the walls of the garage. So they don't want an exposed wall under the ordinance larger than 10 feet. Here, because this development is stepping into the hillside and using the buildings in order to avoid an escarpment and complete excavation of the property, but to build into it, you end up with walls at the back that are higher than the 10 feet. We have our landscape architect here, and he will be testifying as to what that will look like and the landscaping that will be attended to achieve that. I think that Krista in her comments talk about they should be perennials, but I'll let the landscape architect address that himself. With regard to the structures, now of course, because we have the two garages, they're larger than what's permitted. I think it's the maximum size is 24 by 24. But because we have the each garage containing 4 bays, they're larger. Driveway width. The driveway width that's permitted in this zone is, I believe, a 15-foot curb cut, and then you have a 12-foot wide driveway. We are at a larger curb cut. I think we're at 24 feet. And then we will widen to a 16-foot paved driveway with 1 foot of permeable pavers on each side. Now, I mentioned permeable, but under your ordinance, permeability is still included in lot coverage. So even though steps have been taken to manage lot coverage in terms of allowing for the permeability, nonetheless, in terms of the variance that's requested, it has to be consistent with the DRO. With regard to that, I'll be recalling the architect and the engineer, and the architect and the engineer will walk through the changes themselves. There was a question comes up with the combined side yard setback. Because you have 2 buildings under Krista's view, each building meets the combined side yard because they meet the combined side yard. Mr. Snikas points out that the side yards of the property shouldn't contribute to the side yard for each building.
I've never heard of that exasperated, though. Just a little embellishment there.
So the side yard requirement is, I believe, and I'm looking for it here. I don't have that, Mr. Snikas. I think it's around. Go ahead.
Total combined side yard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we had, it's required to be 35%. And I believe that amounts to 52 feet.
That was, I heard it in the 50s as well.
Yeah. Excuse me 1 second. It's not in that section. some reason I can't find it, but why don't you continue and I'll look it up.
We'll have that for the board as to the specific number as the application proceeds. The other variance, of course, is the use variance. This is a single-family zone in the R15 zone, and what's being proposed are the 2 townhome-style, 2-family homes. Unless the board has any questions? Yes?
I just found it, thank you. It's actually on your zoning table. It's listed as required at 52.25 feet in total.
And what is being provided?
I think you have listed 31 feet.
We would point out that the light, air, and open space that is looked for with regard to a combined side yard is met by the design that's presented here to the board. Unless the board has any questions of me.
I have a question. So does the DRO or does Krista, or, I mean, is there an agreed upon methodology for how to calculate the total combined side yard setback in this kind of a situation where you have 2 buildings on one lot?
Not in this kind of situation. It's anticipating the R15 zoning, which is single family.
Right.
So it would be
So maybe
typical-
something else for the annual report?
Except that you may want to refer to another zone and see what the other zone might have.
Right.
But yet,
Or maybe just somehow include the space between the buildings as
Right.
well.
it should, and I think what their engineer has provided is the most conservative. It says 31 feet. They have not added into that what is the distance. I think it's 20.7 feet between the 2
Between them?
proposed buildings. So if you add that in, it's closer to 50 feet combined area. But I would ask the applicants, experts to testify to that.
And there will be planning testimony this evening?
Yes, there will.
Any questions from members of the board? No. And then I would just ask, are there any members of the interested public here this evening? I see a couple of your faces. Potentially, yep, one. Anybody else over here? No? Okay, wonderful. So if you have any questions, as we did in the prior hearing, you're welcome to come forward, and then opinions, save them for the end of the hearing. All right, Mr. Weber, we'll welcome your first witness. for this.
I would ask that Mr. Robinson be recalled to the stand to provide testimony in connection with this matter.
Go ahead, Mr.
Good evening,
Robinson. Good evening. He was sworn previously?
Yes, he was.
So you can begin, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've been previously sworn in, Mr. Robinson,
Yes, I have.
and at the after the initial hearing on March 6th, did you have a chance to revise your architectural plans?
Yes, we did.
And who did you work with in revising the plans?
Well, we worked with our team. We worked with our owner, Manny, Fred, the site surveyor, engineer, and Ed, our landscape engineer, architect as well.
So when you say Ed, you're saying Ed Clark, the licensed landscape architect?
Yes.
And what did you focus on when you were revising the plans?
Well, we focused on increasing the size of the garages to accommodate the DRO sizes of the interior. So the garages have grown slightly. I'm going to try to circle here. I'm going to go to my architectural one here. So if everyone can see this here, in green.
I don't know if the board members can see that. Is there a darker green that you could use?
Purple. All right. Okay, so the garage is expanded both east and west slightly. And we also altered the garages to add side entry, private side entries to the garages for each individual owner.
So before, once a person had parked their car in the garage, then, and if the door shut, then they'd have to go around. Or if they wanted to get into the garage, they had to lift the garage.
Constantly open and close, yes. But now they have access up the stone walkway on the east and west side of the garage buildings into a private entrance for their particular garage.
So they can park the car, close the garage door, lock everything up, and be
Yes.
able to walk to their unit.
Yes.
And the board had wanted to see rear elevations.
Yes, so we included a new sheet showing the elevations at the rear
That view right there that you went by?
I'm going to circle them, they're right here.
Okay, very good. And can you describe what you've circled?
So what you're looking at here is the elevation of the rear of the garage with the garage doors. You're seeing a sloped roof of the garage, and you're seeing the actual location of the dwelling units behind the garage. So those would be the approximate heights beyond of the individual dwelling units of the townhouses, beyond.
And I see the Bowens are here, and the Bowens are the uphill neighbors. So this is the view that they would be seeing if they would just stand on their lot line at the common lot line at the rear of the property?
Yeah, but they would be looking down at these elevations.
Oh, so
They're
these-
at a much higher elevation.
Okay, so this elevation is, from an architectural standpoint, just looking straight on for measurement and for
Correct.
objectivity.
Correct. And I just wanted to also note that we carry the same materials that we've used on the other facades of the garage to the rear of the facades.
And can we see the side elevations?
For example, this is the one from the east looking west. So this is the area of the approximate retaining wall, which I want to note that that's where the existing retaining wall is today of the existing development. And the house...
Do you show the lot line on this elevation to the rear?
I don't show it on my architectural section, but it is approximately right here.
Very good.
I just wanted to note that from our visits to the site, we took the development, which is currently here, which is up against this demising wall, roughly right here, and pushed it away from the back lot toward the front. One of our goals was to align the facades of the new development with the prevailing front elevation of the block, recreating the streetscape. Because the current layout of the dwelling unit and the professional office space is set far back from the site with a surface parking lot out front.
Very good. And did you have a chance to review the comments of Krista Anderson?
Yes.
And with regard to floor area ratio, you've heard me make indications as to what the amount of square footage was devoted to the attic, what amounts were added by her with regard to the attic area. Can you describe what it is exactly that is added in the attic and what amount it contributes to the floor area ratio?
We developed a sheet A2.3 FAR for Krista Anderson and designated the areas that were below 5 feet, from 5 feet to 7 feet, and then above 7 feet. So for FAR purposes, everything here is above 5 feet.
Well, FAR is 7 feet, over 7 feet,
And then,
right?
the 7-foot section is in the middle of that, including the circulation of the stair, which is here, which is in the center of the attic space where the peak of the roof is.
And the FAR, then, is that necessary to achieve the peaked roof?
It's my professional opinion that the architectural style of the roof is really important to match the neighborhood characteristics. So yes, I think the steep pitch of that roof is necessary.
I don't see a window.
This building does not have any windows. It's not a livable space. There's no bathroom or plumbing up here. The house, the dwelling unit to the right of it, we put a little small window opening that's for architectural detailing purposes only. It's not a fire egress window. It's simply for aesthetics on the exterior.
And if you didn't have the FAR with this peak, what would the roof line look like?
It would be very flat.
And how much of that attic contributes to FAR? Is it 4.9%?
It is.
And then, in terms of the garage area, I've talked about the fact that there's credit associated with each building, but that leaves a portion of the garage that's still subject to floor area ratio standards of 718 square feet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And how much does that contribute to the floor area ratio? If I said 2.56%, would that be accurate?
That is correct.
Is it your understanding that under RSIS, the Residential Site Improvement Standards, garages would not be required?
They're not required for RSIS.
And you're not at all recommending that there not be garages here?
No, I believe it's part of the design review ordinance that the two-car garage is required per dwelling unit.
Well, in terms of the overall use from an architectural standpoint, would you agree that having a garage is essential to this?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
And did you and Manny explore any different designs with regard to the property?
We did.
What were they?
We looked at multiple configurations of units on the site. We looked at single-family on this site. We felt that because of the distinct slope of the site, not only going from north to south, but also from southwest to northeast, a configuration of multiple elevations was particularly useful and adequate for this type of site, where we could break it up, break it apart. We looked at circulation coming into the site from one entrance and coming out another, which put a loop around the whole site, which was not looked at favorably as part of the team. We looked at entering the site from one side and having side garages on this site, but we felt that that was taking away, had a negative impact to the site and also the neighbors. We just felt that on this site that stacking developments, and you could tell from the front elevations that each floor plan does go up. I'm exaggerating here, but it's slowly going up I really exaggerate here. But basically, every floor plate of the ground floor is 1 foot higher as you go from west to east. And that's because also of the land. You can see the slope along the front of the houses here, and you can see it as well as in the elevations of the private patios in the back. You can see the slope going up and up that way.
Chris Anderson had pointed out that accessory structure should not have the two lowest accessory walls greater than 10 feet. What's the height of the lowest walls, and what are they facing?
The walls, I'm assuming this is the one you're speaking on here, it's facing the private yards of each individual dwelling unit. It's approximately 15 feet. And what we did architecturally is try to break down that height with differentiating materials.
What do you mean by differentiating materials?
Well, we're carrying the fieldstone veneer, which is in the front of the dwelling units. We're bringing it back to the garages, and we're establishing a water line, per se, at the back of the garages facing the private patio yard areas. And then we fill where the windows are of the garages with paneling and window openings, fenestrations, and such like that.
You say a fieldstone style foundation?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Well, it's natural stone that's supported by the foundation walls. So we're not seeing CMU walls, we're not seeing stucco.
What CMU means?
Concrete masonry units. We're not seeing cinder blocks or just concrete. This is architectural style. I think there's some examples of this on other sites adjacent to this property. So we're trying to keep that character together.
And I had gone over with the board building coverage, indicating that the front porches are included in building coverage and that the covered patios are included in building coverage. Can you bring up the plan? Well, you have. So can you show for the board where the covered porches are?
This will be the front porch of Unit A, and this is the covered patio of Unit A. Accessible off of the dining
And what you're
kitchen.
showing when you say this is, you've highlighted on sheet, do you know what number sheet that is?
A2.1.
A2.1, and you've gone to the left-hand diagram and circled the left-hand corner showing the covered patio.
Correct.
Could you go to the next one?
So the adjoining unit to the right, front porch is over on this side, and then the covered patio is over here,
And that's up to the right.
to the right.
And so those, that's for one building, and then you have the other building with these same covered areas. And what's the total amount that they contribute to building coverage?
I believe it's 632 square feet.
And do you know what percentage of the FAR that is?
I believe it's 2.28%.
And so what's the variance is being requested is 20.54. If you were to deduct the 2.28, would you end up with 18.26%?
You would.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Ed or Dipti, any questions?
I have a few questions. With regard to the covered patio and covered porch you just described, that's a total of 632 square feet for both buildings?
Total, yes, both buildings.
That's total for the site?
Correct.
So that equates to the 2.28, okay.
Yes.
I think I heard during your testimony with regard to the alternatives looked at for the property, that this offered multiple elevations that allowed the ability to deal with the site's topography. I didn't quite follow your discussion on that.
But we
Could
think
you just elaborate?
we think that this development works well with the site. Because the site is sloping, we're able to, develop a pattern of dwelling units to match that topography without doing substantial excavation on the property and creating a very large retaining wall to make one flat, yard. So we felt that this type of development was really suitable for this topography.
Okay, and that would be a slope east to west, I think you were indicating?
It slopes up from west to east.
Okay, as well as the slope from the front to the back?
Yes,
You're using the building to help transition that grade?
correct.
That was all the questions I had.
Dipti, anything for the architect?
I have nothing, thank you.
Members of the board, anything for the architect? Okay. Members of the interested public, any questions for the architect? Please just come forward, to the podium if you can. And we're just doing questions, just need your first name, last name, and address.
Ben Bowen, 10 Hillview Terrace. I have a question about the private side doors on the garage. Is it anticipated to be illuminated?
Dave Robbins again, architect. The plans currently do not show lights over those doors. But there is lighting, low lighting, landscape lighting along the paths leading up to the doors.
Okay, thank you.
Ed, sorry?
No, I want to follow up with that
Mr. Webb,
point.
sorry.
I didn't know if you needed man-door lights as well, according to code. I'm not sure if that's something code would require. I just want that to be clear for the neighbor.
So in other words, if the Uniform Construction Code requires it, then there would be a light. But the light is planned to be downlit, all the lighting will be downlit, and all of it is, will comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, I just wanted you to be aware. There could be lights there.
Thank you. So the lot area, or the pavement in front of the garages looks in the latest rendering as if it's pitched to the south. Is that true, or is it relatively flat?
We have the engineer coming up next.
Oh, that's an
So he'll be
engineer
able to
question.
talk about the changes.
Okay. How much higher in elevation is the west garage compared to the east garage?
Again, the engineer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, to your next witness, Mr. Weber.
I would ask that Mr. Fred Stewart be recalled to the stand.
Welcome back, Mr. Stewart. I guess he's still under oath.
Also previously sworn, still under oath.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, have you revised the engineering plans after the March 6th meeting to respond to the board's comments, to staff comments, and then listening to the comments of Mr. Bowen?
Yes, I have.
Would you describe those before the board?
Well, there's three main changes to the plans. In order to address the lot coverage, we modified the driveway area, or portions of the driveway area, to permeable pavers. Main areas was up by the garage, of course, where the landings are, or the entrances into the garage.
Pull up the site plan. Can we pull up the site plan for the board?
Sure. Oh, sorry.
What you're looking at here on sheet, that's the first sheet, that's the existing conditions showing the steep slopes.
There we go. And that would be the cross-hatched areas right here.
I think we'll have to scroll in.
Yeah, scrolling over. Okay, got it. And then zoom in. I might need your help with this one. There we go. All right, so that would be this area in here. That's not good. I want to highlight that. I need that one. Thank you. That would be this hatched area here, along with the apron area, and then, of course, we have permeable pavers along the edges of the driveway that are actually 2 foot in width. For the total width of the driveway is at 18 feet. The paved section's at 14 feet, and then a 2-foot paver area along each sideline that equates to 18 feet.
And the patios, the private patios,
Yes, they were modified as well.
could you show them with the blue?
Right here in these areas, little P-shaped areas are now permeable pavers for each unit. Before, we basically had that whole area was covered in some sort of patio with some smaller landscaped areas, but now we enlarged those landscaped areas and reduced those to the patios that you see here.
And I had indicated in the opening that the paved area of the driveway was 16 feet. I'm incorrect? It should be 14 feet, but 2-foot wide permeable pavers.
That's correct. 14 foot wide of asphalt and 2 foot on each side of permeable pavers.
Ordinarily, don't see the applicants putting in permeable pavers because of the issues associated with maintaining them. Is the kind of configuration here where you have that backup area for the garages something that actually is suitable for the permeable pavers?
Yes, most definitely. It's at a gentle slope. Permeable pavers are fine. They will collect some stormwater runoff, some surface runoff on the permeable paver surface itself.
And what will they look like?
It's basically a brick paver system. That's all it is. It's just a different detail that's associated with the permeable paver according to the state standards. And basically that's it's a much thicker detail in depth. Basically you have stone and sand in there to help the surface runoff infiltrate or percolate into the ground.
You talked about there were 3 main changes to the plans. Can you describe the other changes?
Yes, one was a driveway, which I just mentioned. That was the second one. And then reduced slope of the driveway. We went from 15% to 12.5%. We were able to reduce that by maintaining the 6-foot wall in the rear of the property back in here. And then we actually sloped it towards the garage on each side, going this way, sloping downward towards the garage. And we placed trench drains across the front of the garage doors to capture their surface runoff. Prior to this, we had basically a catch basin located in the left-hand corner over here that was collecting all the runoff, and we had it pitched downward away from the garage. So in sloping this downward towards the garage, we were able to lower the garage areas themselves and then basically lower the driveway slope as well, from 15 to 12.5%.
And if I remember correctly, there were also 2 sets of stairs that went up to the upper backyard, which is shown at the top of the sheet.
That's correct.
They've been removed as well?
Yes, that was in these sections up here. Can we clear that up? Getting a little messy now.
And did you remove those in order to effect more privacy in the upper rear yard? And I think that would have been a comment that would have occurred with discussions with Manny and with Ed Clark.
That's correct. We did remove those. It's more of a private area now. It's just basically a slopeward, going upward slope towards the rear property line, and now we are providing more landscaping, which the landscape architect will review with you.
It also makes maneuverability a little bit easier with regard to the access to the garages. And so that was taken out of consideration, that one of the comments that Krista Anderson had.
Yes, that's correct.
What's the setback between the garage and the rear wall?
Garage and the rear wall, we have 28 feet of permeable paver area right there, and another 3 feet between the wall and the curb line. So that's a total of 31 feet.
And I think in some of the questions that have been brought up by the board's professionals, they talked about circulation. Have you had an opportunity to come up with an opinion as to the amount of turning maneuvers necessary to enter the garages?
Yes, and I will say that the most difficult garage to access would be this one in this area here. Due to the location of it, because as you're approaching or coming up the hill into the rear yard area, as you're driving, you basically have to turn and maneuver and sweep into that garage to access it properly. With a larger vehicle, it may be a little bit more difficult. What we would need to do in order to access that with a larger vehicle, again, maybe swing just a little bit wider, come around, they might get stuck into doing a K-turn to basically enter into the garage area. It's manageable. The 28 feet plus that extra 3 feet between the curb and the wall actually allows for better maneuvering up on the site. Typically, a 28-foot is a decent amount of area for this type of setup with a side entry garage on a house. So this does work, and like I said, that would be the most difficult garage door opening to enter. Keep in mind these are two bay wide doorways, so it's not like you're entering a single door, you're entering a double wide door. So you'll be able to basically maneuver also as you're in the garage as well.
So there won't be a pillar in between the two bays. It'll be just two bays unencumbered.
That's correct.
Now, when I was looking at the plans, you talked about the retaining wall at the rear at 6 feet, but I'm not counting the wall at 6 feet. I see that I'm at the top of wall 502, bottom wall 498. So if we can go back to sheet 3 of 5.
Okay.
I see 5 feet at one point, where top of wall 504, bottom of wall 499.
Yes, that's correct. It's a 5-foot maximum, which would be in this northerly corner right in there. It's a 5-foot maximum, I stand corrected.
And then it disappears to grade at any point?
Yes, it does. As you, of course, goes towards the street, towards the front, it does go down to grade at that area there. Same thing as you approach the southeast, that would be, southwest, I'm sorry. Coming around this way, it gets less as you're coming across the parking area. So in this corner here, basically got 496 and 496. It's a transition from becoming a face of the wall that you're looking at from the driveway to becoming a wall that's now retaining the driveway. So now this turns into a upper wall on the driveway side and lower wall on the beyond the driveway, on the along southerly property line. And that there, the maximum height there would be 4 feet right at this corner here. And then it basically goes down along the stairway leading from the garage to the patios.
There was a question with regard from Mr. Bowen as to what effect would headlights have as you drive up the 12.5 degrees slope. Have you prepared an exhibit to address that?
Yes, I did. I basically did a cross-section of the property through the center line of the driveway. And that's this one here, which is an exhibit, which is dated 5/15/23.
This is going to be new, Stephanie.
And sheet 1 of 1.
So can we make this A3 so that I can send you one PDF of A2? Thank you.
I have a copy. Not yet. Okay. Sure. So this is basically the center line of the driveway, starting at the curb line of the street, down this area here.
Right here's the street curb coming onto the property. This is the property line. And that's a center line grade of the driveway of the proposed drive as we're traveling up. And here we have where it basically softens up grade, right in that section here in front of the garages. That's the rear curb line, the rear of the driveway area, going up to the wall. There's your wall. And that's the grade leading up to the property line, which is, again, that's the property line right in this area. And then beyond the property line, and that's going up to the adjacent garage on the neighboring property. So you can see the difference between the base of the garage and the top of the wall height that's right here, which is about, it's probably close to about 7 or 8 feet difference as you're going up that slope. That's how much higher the bottom of that garage is, or the ground at that garage is. There you go. Thank you. Now, on here, I have a larger vehicle, as one can see. And this is the light beam as you're traveling up the driveway. And as you can see, this drive at 12.5%, as you're approaching up, the light beam basically hits into the wall right in that section there. Now, keep in mind that the light beam from vehicles are directed downward onto the pavement, not upward into the sky, so you can see where you're driving, obviously. And that's what we show here. Based on some of the research that we've done, this is basically the light beam thrown out from a headlight on a vehicle. It's more of a flat trajectory, or maybe even like, I believe it's about a half a foot over 30 feet. It actually drops down. But we just show a flat trajectory of the light beam. So as you can see, it hits the wall and doesn't go beyond the wall. Keep in mind that this area here, this sloped area, will be landscaped, and the landscape architect will gladly go over that with you.
I believe it was the planner asked the question as to whether or not the patio in the private yards was greater than 1 foot, and as a result converted from being a patio to being a deck, and therefore included in building coverage. Did you have a chance to examine this point?
My grading thing. Yes, I did review that, and based on my grades around the patio area, that's it. Yep. Let's come over in this area here. Here's the patio, and basically we will or are within a foot. That would be right here. Within a foot. That patio elevation is at 493.3, and as you're going from the house to the back of the garage, the grade is gently sloping upward. So the contour right here is at 494, and that elevation where you step onto the patio is at 493.3. So we are within a foot for the patios for the surrounding grade.
Have you had an opportunity to review the most recent reports of the board's professionals?
Yes, I have.
In connection with this application?
Yes, I have.
And subject to the testimony that you provided and that the other experts provide, are you able to respond affirmatively to the recommendations of the board's professionals?
Yes, we can.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Questions?
Yes. You mentioned in the permeable pavers area behind the garages, it's a gentle slope. What are the slope ranges? It looks like the highest slope is 7% or 6.69%?
Yeah, that would be
based on the plan?
6.69%.
Okay.
That's the worst case scenario.
Okay. Would there be any under drains proposed with these permeable pavers that tie into your drainage system?
No.
For maintenance or?
We did not propose any under drains. We feel that any surface runoff that's additional that cannot penetrate will go into the trench grates.
And the trench drains connect to the lawn inlet? Is that how? I couldn't tell where that exactly outlets did.
That's correct. That would be right here. We have a manhole.
Okay.
which the trench drains come across the front of the garages heading this way, connect to that manhole, and then proceed out to the front of the property.
I see, okay. Our main comment was to try to collect some of this water into the dry well system, and that is something for the driveway that's, in the center of the property. Is that acceptable to collect it to the trench drain to the bottom, at the bottom of the site, and you could connect it back to the dry well system that's in the front of the sites for all 4 units?
As far as the trench grate across the front, right in this section here, because the dry wells are located uphill, that would be a little bit of an issue. But
With piping?
yeah, with the pipe network,
Okay.
it means our dry wells would have to be that much deeper. I can try and move them forward, but we do have that decorative wall there. I really did not want to get too close to with the dry well system. So that might be a little bit of an issue. But as far as the drain coming down the hill from up above, we could simply connect it to that dry well system there and include that in those calculations as well.
Very good.
Which would probably be a good idea, because I do know that we have to proceed to the county with this, and they like to see as much runoff being collected as possible. So that's actually a good idea. We can accommodate that.
Okay. So the other question.
Could, Mr. Chairman, for purposes of a condition of approval, if the board approves the application, the language would be that the drainage to the west and east, I imagine there's one on the east side of the property as well?
Just one on the west.
Just the
Yeah.
drain line on the west would be connected to the dry well system before discharging further. Is that a fair statement, engineers?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, yes, 2 concurring engineers. Anything else, Dip, do you want to flag?
The wall system that you have, the detail shows a modular block wall. Is that for the entire site? Yes, a modular block wall. Is that for the entire site?
Excluding the decorative walls.
Okay, and would you have drainage collected behind the walls? That would also tie into,
Oh, yes.
currently the detail does not show.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, most definitely we'll have a drain line connected to the drainage system that we were just discussing.
Very good.
And that will be for the behind-the-wall drainage.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Anything you want to flag?
Just 2 things. The maximum steep slope disturbance, that has not changed, right, with the revised drawing?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Similar.
still the same. And the driveway width variance that's being requested, is it 24 feet and 28 feet? Curb line still?
It's 24 feet at the, let me go to the layout plan.
It flares out, right?
Yep.
At the road.
Yes, 24 feet at the roadway with a small transition area of, I think, like 2 feet. It's for the curb.
On either side, okay. Thank you, nothing further.
Okay. Questions from the board? Just ask for you to opine a moment on these permeable pavers. So in the spectrum between impenetrable asphalt and the most pervious surface, I don't know, let's say just lush green grass, really where do these fall in your professional opinion?
Oh, I would say about in the middle. Maybe a little bit more towards the grass end.
So not enough to require under drainage, but enough to meaningfully draw water from the surface.
That's correct.
And reduce the stormwater impact.
Correct. And some storage as well.
And some storage.
Because there's a gravel area in there as well. Between the sand that allows for basically cleaner infiltration. You also have the gravel area that allows for more storage too below the pavers.
Mr. Weber mentioned some additional maintenance that's required around permeable paving systems. What is that?
Yeah.
Or what's the useful life, or what's to be considered there?
Well, it depends on the area and what's happening on the pavers themselves, leaf debris and that, for that matter. So basically, you have to maintain them. They do have to be maintained and be kept clean. So maybe once a year, an inspection after like maybe the fall. and then inspect to make sure there's not a lot of debris in there. Same thing with grass cuttings. You don't want to blow grass cuttings on there. So they do need some maintenance, such as that, and inspections as well. Just like the dry wells will need to be inspected, okay? Typically, we do a O&M report, operating maintenance report.
Thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Bowen, did they answer your questions? I believe they did, but if you have additional, you're welcome to come forward.
Just the one I asked before, how much higher is the east garage than the west garage in elevation?
Okay, I'll just go to my sheet 3, the grading plan. All right. Garage number 2, which is the one on the right, is 497.25 for the floor elevation, and the one on the left is 495.25. So a 2-foot difference in elevation between the two.
For the questions from our board professionals, the board itself, and the interested public, I think we're good with our engineering testimony. We can proceed to your next witness, Mr. Weber.
Thank you. I'd ask that Mr. Edward Clark, the licensed landscape architect, be called to the stand to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Edward Clark, C-L-A-R-K. The firm Edward Clark Landscape Architect, 362 Route 206, Flanders, New Jersey.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background experience and 3 boards you've here before recently?
So I'm a licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey for 27 years. Last appeared before Mendham Borough, Mendham Township, and Burnsville.
Questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
Accept credentials. Welcome to Union County.
Thank you. I've actually been here before too. It's probably about 12 to 15 years
Some
ago.
time, yes.
So,
You may proceed.
thank you.
Mr. Clark, are you familiar with the applications that is currently pending before the board?
I am. We prepared the landscape plans for the project. We've worked by visiting the site, absorbing the conditions, exposure grades, soils, light, on and off-site views, and prepared a series of preliminary and ultimately final landscape plans for the project.
Are you familiar with the City of Summit and its development regulations ordinance?
I am. I've drawn, permitted, and built out many projects over the years. In the past 12 months, I've drawn, permitted, and built out 3 projects in town.
And can you describe the landscape plan that's been prepared for review by the board?
So our landscape plan, again, in general, we worked, collaborated with the team, worked with the conditions, and it's always the goal of the landscape architect approach is to work with the conditions we have. And so the owner was very generous in letting the professionals do what they saw at the site best. And I can walk through some of the ways we approach that if you like. I'm just going to walk through the site front to back. And overall, starting at Springfield Avenue, as you saw in the architectural rendering that was just on the easel, the buildings have a very residential feel that isn't consistent with the rest of the street, and I want the landscape to feel the same way. The palette of plants will be typical of what you see in a residential site. Also a very classic palette of plants, things you would have seen for sale in a nursery 100 years ago. So a lot of old-fashioned plants appearing in the front. As we step back, one of the things overall on the site was there will be some tree removal involved, and I wanted to make sure that we restored the canopy as best as possible. That was one of the goals with the tree selection and planting, restoring the canopy and providing the screening to the surrounding sites. Other goal with the tree planting was to help scale the buildings to the rest of the street. It's a heavily treed street going up and down from our site, and we want to retain that as much as possible. We brought a street tree style planting out to Springfield Avenue to offset what will be the loss of some of the trees. We look to keep the trees when possible, but in the site, the larger trees, particularly out by the street, one of them has about a third of the canopy missing as a result of storm damage, and the one to the east has been a victim of the power company's pruning practices. So we sacrificed those two, but are restoring them. So sugar maples going up and down the street, oaks lining the side
Ms.
yard.
Clark, before we go into what you're planning to replace the trees, have you prepared a plan that shows the trees that are to be removed? I remember that, I believe that was Vice Chairman Steiner was curious about that. So we have that plan. Let's go to that plan, then you can demonstrate to the board what you're doing to replace it.
So tree removal triggered by the project represented on this drawing. In addition, there were three trees towards the rear property line that were requested to be removed by one of the neighbors.
And so those three trees, which have just been circled in blue, are at the property line of the Bowens property. Those are Norway maples, and those are to be removed?
That's correct. Norway maples are non-native invasive species, and they are to be removed.
And that comes at the request of the Bowens?
It does.
And then along the side lot line on the east, there's a black walnut?
Yes.
And that's being removed. Did you make any inquiries with a mill as to whether or not they're interested in the black walnut?
So there is a market for three types of trees at the moment, black walnut being one of them. It's a fantastic wood, often used in furniture making, and Castor Sawmill in Sussex County, who we've worked with before, would be happy to mill it. It's a particularly straight log for a black walnut. It's a very valuable piece of wood, actually.
The board approves the application. We would offer that as a condition of approval, that that tree would not just be put across the river in Chatham. I don't know if anyone's seen that collection of logs, but it will be sent to the, what's the mill?
Castor Sawmill.
Castor Sawmill.
Very neat. Neat trivia. All right, keep going.
I did on the 27th of April speak to Mr. Linson about the tree removal and replacement plan. We had a phone conversation. He was familiar with the site as well. Seems to be pleased with the replacement of the trees.
I had interrupted the description. You were talking about the front, you were talking about the street trees, the buffering that will be enhanced on the east and the west. We have the uphill neighbors here. Can you describe what you're proposing at the back of the property?
I can, and I would start by describing what's lining the driveway. So those 8 columnar trees that you see lining the driveway should help mitigate some of the headlight, the ambient light from the headlights starting at the beginning of the driveway. As you get to the top of the driveway, there's a total of 28 Norway spruce, which line the back of the property, and some of them are lined up directly on the center line of the driveway. In addition, so Norway spruce is something you're probably all familiar with. Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, that's a Norway spruce. So that's kind of, it's an evergreen, and that's the kind of height we can expect to get out of those trees. They grow about a foot a year.
How high will they be at planting?
Their spec is 6 to 7 foot at planting. In addition to the Norway spruce, there are skip laurel, which are also evergreen, and be around 12, 15 feet when they mature. And then in addition are some deciduous plants, trees up front, the 5 closest to the wall are deciduous, and the back buffer is also has deciduous shrubs.
What's the orientation of sunlight on this property?
So you'll have full sun, that back slope will have full sun at noon. So there's a little bit of shade up in the corners in the morning and the afternoon, but the proposed planting on the north property line should receive full sun.
What does
most of
full
the day.
sun do for growing plants?
Most plants will become lusher, fuller in a full sun condition. Even trees like Norway spruce that can survive in sun or shade, they're always fuller and healthier in that condition.
What type of grass are you putting up there?
So beginning at the short answer, it's a low maintenance mix. It's hard fescue, little blue stem with pollinators mixed into it. So we took the approach that area that follows, what is that beginning at each end of the retaining wall and circling around the back, instead of going for a traditional lawn, leave it's in a sloped condition, naturalize it. Won't be any irrigation going to the lawn. The trees will be on drip irrigation just to get them established, but there won't be any irrigation on the lawn, and it'll be an unmowed situation.
You said something about a pollinator?
So worked into that mix are a series of pollinator plants that can, again, they're perennials. They'll return on their own, survive in this low irrigation environment, no irrigation environment, hot sun beating on them, occasional deer running through. So we've naturalized that from the back wall to the rear property line, just going back, reverting to a natural condition.
Can we talk about the private yards?
Yes. So going back to grades and how we integrate the work into the grades, what the design narrative that kind of came around with looking at these backyards, it's just a little bit of a stretch here, but if you think of a very small backyard in the suburbs of London, there isn't much lawn, it's walled off, there's privacy. The house, the garage is getting us halfway there. We've, in addition, between the units, created a decorative wall that at its highest point would be 6 feet. We mentioned that it's also sloping west to east. But that will set it up, and plus we have some hedging on each end. That will set it up to be not your traditional New Jersey suburban backyard with a lawn. It's more of an intimate small garden. And each of the 4 units will have that treatment. So again, minimize the mowing, minimize the grading, and that was a more, I think, creative and less intrusive way of incorporating the backyards. We have at the street a traditional approach that's consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, but that backyard treatment is not typical of what you'd find.
Did you prepare a cross-section?
We did. So this is a zoom in of using as an example behind Unit 4. And so we're standing here looking this way, have the house and the privacy wall between the units, and then the garage. And
The garage would be on the left and the house would be on the right?
that's correct. And that wall, that would max out at 6 feet. And decorative landscape treatment, some small trees, again, picking right tree, right place, so we don't have a problem 10 years from now, these trees pushing into the buildings and so on. But that is how we've treated the divide between the properties. And if we were to look at the lower section, that freestanding wall is it's sort of a retaining wall. It's holding back, say, a foot of grade from one unit to the other. But that would be the view looking from the houses out towards the garage.
And in terms of the pathways, can we talk about illumination?
So represented with these small green half circles would be built into the walls. Built into the walls would be a shrouded low voltage light that would light the way down the steps. On the driveway side where we don't have those walls, a little closer to the walk where these red marks are, would be a low path light, again downwardly shrouded.
When you say low, how low on the driveway lights?
Knee high. And again, downwardly shrouded, a maximum of a 3-watt LED bulb in each fixture.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Dipti, any comments?
No, thank you.
Maybe for the English garden, Ed?
Just a few, just real quick, maybe just to get some clarification. I understand you're going with the naturalized mix in the back area behind the garages. There's a gap on the left-hand side, or actually I see a tree there. I must have an older copy of the plan in front of me. Is that going to be a continuous mulched bed towards the neighbor to the left? My only reason for bringing that up is that sometimes the naturalized area can be objectionable to neighbors. And if you had a barrier or some sort of transition planting in that area, it helps to form that edge of that naturalized area. So I think you have an ornamental tree there.
This shade tree up.
Right. Could there be some shrubs added on that side or something just to continue the bed line?
Yes.
In that area? That's something the applicant can consider in that area. Okay, thank you. And then at the garages themselves, I understand the architect indicated at detail that he would have the, I was going to call it a rubble wall or a stone veneer to the exposed portion of the garage foundation. You have planting in that area as well?
On the back side?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and that's just, is that perennials or is that shrub planting in that area too?
So shrubs in that back layer against the wall.
Okay.
And then stepping down to perennials in that, or olive color.
You indicated lighting for the walk to the garage. Are there any light fixtures at the front walk, particularly at the staircases that are proposed to the front of the building?
So again, that green half circle represents recessed lighting in the risers of the stairs.
Okay.
And it occurs again at the cheek walls.
At the cheek walls, okay, that's what I didn't see. Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay. Questions from the board for the landscape architect? Okay.
Are the skinny jeans oaks, are they evergreen?
No, they're deciduous. They do hold their leaves late and they are densely branched. So a good example of the median here on Broad Street, those are skinny oak, skinny
Do you have a
jeans
picture
oaks.
of them in your
Oh, we do. Thanks.
presentation? And one of the exhibits that was brought up, Mr. Chairman, we should have had it marked as it was being testified to. I forgot which one it was.
We did this whole thing as A3.
Oh.
Great to have Sam, isn't it? Right? He's on top of it. Just hang back, Mr. Weber. Right?
Thank you.
Get in the way.
So they're not evergreen, but kind of like pin oaks, they hold their leaves sort of.
Okay, all right, I just curious.
Mr. Clark has photos of any of the plants that he has mentioned, if anyone's curious.
Curious? No curiosity. Mr. Bowen, any questions for the landscape architect? None? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's get to some planning. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Ms. Alfonso will be conducting this presentation at this point, Mr. Chairman. So I'll let her call the witness. I will not be
You're
able to
kidding.
manage the screen.
I'm doing the screen, yes.
It's a good duo.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Sure. McKinley Mertz, M-E-R-T-Z. Business address is 236 Broad Street in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background experience and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Sure. I am a principal planner at Higher Gruel and Associates. I have a Master's of City Planning from the Blaustein School at Rutgers. I have the Professional Planning New Jersey state licensure, as well as the National AICP certification. I've testified in boards across the state. Three recent ones have been Princeton, Toms River, Branchburg. I've also done testimony in front of the Supreme Court for affordable housing measures. I serve as board planners at 9 different boards across the state, including your neighbors, New Providence, Harding, and the Scotch Plains Zoning Board.
Any questions, or would you like to accept your credentials?
We'll accept your credentials. Welcome.
Great, thank you. It's good to be here. So, do you want me just to go into it, Sam? Or would you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I do have an exhibit pulled up, so while Sam's getting that prepared. So to prepare for tonight, I have studied all of the application material from the previous experts that were in front of you, the professional reports, your board's professionals, as well as Ms. Anderson's, other town officials that have submitted reports. I did 2 site visits, once back in July and again more recently in March. I've also reviewed the master plan documents, your zoning ordinance, and did prepare an exhibit, which hopefully will be getting on the screen shortly. Maybe? Okay. So what that exhibit is going to show are the surrounding land uses. So I have a tax map that shows where we're located and who our neighbors are, as well as photos of our site and the neighbors across the street and to our west. What that exhibit will show is that to our west, we have larger, slightly newer single-family development. Same with to the north, again, larger single-family development. Directly east, we abut City of Summit property, as well as the Board of Education property slightly to the north of that. Further east is an exempt property that was previously owned by the Red Cross, although it's my understanding that a Unitarian church has recently purchased that property. So it will continue to be exempt, but it is a non-residential property to our east. Across the street from us, we have a few multifamily houses, one 4-family development that is a affordable development, as my understanding is with your housing plan. That's immediately across the street from us. Immediately to the west of that building are 3 2-family homes that move west across the street. Following those are a series of smaller 1 to 1.5 story single-family homes. They look to be about post-World War II era. Our site is developed with a non-conforming commercial use. It was approved in the 1980s through a use variance to continue to operate a professional office space in conjunction with a residential use, a single-family residential use. So we have a conforming single-family residential use, but it's attached to a non-conforming office space. And it has functioned as an office space, my understanding is, since that use variance was granted in the mid-'80s. We are proposing, as has been already testified to, we're going to demolish all of the existing improvements on site, including there's a very large paved driveway with parking area for anyone coming to the office, as well as it is being used by the residents, of course. And we will be constructing our 2 2-family homes in a townhouse-style development. Right now, the site is incredibly sloped, and right now there is no control of that slope. One of the photos, maybe that will come up, will show you that there is a very steep slope that has no retaining walls. It literally just ends at the end of the existing building. So no control of stormwater, no control of what's happening with the land. We do require several variances. That is the reason for my presence in front of you tonight. 2 D variances, one being the D1, since single-family homes are permitted in the R15, but we have 2 2-family homes for a total of 4 residential units. We also trigger, as has been talked to already, a D4 FAR variance. 0.25 is permitted, where we have 0.3205. That represents about 8,800 square feet of habitable space pursuant to your ordinance. It is my opinion that if you were to act favorably on our D1 variance, that we would request that you also act favorably on that D4. You would not do the D4 without the D1, but I'm going to provide the testimony and the criteria for both of the D variances. There are several bulk variances that have been testified to already. Oh. Thank you. That's okay. Real quickly, the exhibit in front of you, which is A4, I believe. Is that where we were? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So as I've mentioned, this front page shows it's really a land use map of where we are. Okay, that doesn't work. The purple in the middle is our subject property, surrounded, again, the exempt properties owned by the city and the Board of Education to our right in blue. Single-family properties are highlighted in yellow. The dark brown across the street from us is the 4-family affordable housing unit, and the 3 properties to the left are 3 2-family homes. What's not seen on this, just out of reach off the page, is less than half a mile away is a King's grocery store, as well as the New Providence train station. Very walkable. There are sidewalks the entire way. It is sloping a little bit from our site down. It would probably be a little bit of an uphill walk, but it is very walkable from there. These are photos of the existing conditions on the site. Does this not work? Okay. We switched technology, I'm sorry. So here, this top photo, which is labeled as A on page 2 of the exhibit, these photos were taken July 12th, 2022, and I did take all of these photos myself. This is standing in the driveway looking up towards the house and the office. You can see the slope as I'm standing upright in this photo. And also you can see the expansive pavement that takes up most of the west side of the front yard. Here again is a closer up of the house. Also a good representation of the slope on the site that we're dealing with. You can see the stairs moving up to the front door there, and this is an overgrown area, of course, with covering the slope there. If we move down to, oops. We moved down to photo C in the lower left. This is the condition I was talking about before, where this is the rear of the property. That fence it's not the property boundary. It's maybe 15 feet or so inland from the northern property boundary, but you can see the uncontrolled slope going into the rear of our existing building there. No retaining walls, no control of stormwater at all, as the current condition is. Photo D is taken from the city's property to the northwest, looking down at our building. If you can see my mouse, this is that white fence there. And then right at the edge of the photo is the northern property boundary. These are photos of our neighbors taken on March 1st. Photo E is the 4-family affordable, and then following to F in the upper right, G in the lower left, and H in the lower right. These are the existing 2-family homes located across the street and a little bit to the west.
Do you know if those existing 2-family homes were granted use variances, or they were pre-existing non-conformities?
I looked into it. I could not find a resolution. As far as I can tell, they have been there for a rather long time. Yeah. Following west on Springfield, we have, as I said before, kind of 1.5, a 2-story in J, single-family homes. I believe most of them are post-World War II development. You can see, especially in this photo I in the upper left, they have a single width driveway for cars, so those cars do have to back onto Springfield when they exit their home. On our side of the street, the north side of Springfield, to the west of our property, photos M, N, and O show the existing single-family houses there. They're slightly larger. They're also slightly newer. These are the results of a subdivision from a few years back, from 2013 or so. And finally, photo P at the east of our site shows the City of Summit's property, which is overgrown. I shouldn't say overgrown, but there's natural landscaping that occurs there. So let's just pull it back to here. Okay. Setting the stage. I'm not going to reiterate the variances because I think they've been mentioned many times and it's getting quite late, but if you forget them, I have a full list that I can go back one by one if that would be helpful. But instead I'm going to jump into the testimony for our D variances that we require. The D1 being the use variance, the main reason why we're here, proposing 2 families where only single families are permitted in the R15 zone. So part of our criteria is to speak to the positive criteria in that the site is particularly suited for the use that we are proposing tonight. We have a very large lot. As you can see in this, the tax maps, compared to the neighbors across the street and to the left, we are almost double what you're seeing there. To the north, the properties get a little, the shapes of those properties become a little more unique. But generally speaking, in our neighborhood on Springfield Avenue, we are a larger site for what is happening in the direct vicinity. We're also located on Springfield Avenue, which is County Road 512. It is one of the more largely used thoroughfares in the city, traversing the whole city, bringing you into New Providence. It is a fairly, cars move pretty quickly on that road, just from my experience from visiting it, making it pretty major transition area and arterial road to bring people through the city and into other communities. A benefit of maintaining a single lot as opposed to subdividing this, we could do the same proposal but subdivide it into 2 lots, is that I think the biggest benefit is being able to maintain this single shared driveway that does not have to, we don't have to enter into any cumbersome cross-access easements between the driveway, and it's only one driveway onto Springfield Avenue. We wouldn't have multiple. If you had subdivided this and had 2 conforming single-family lots with single-family homes, they would each have their own driveway and curb cut going onto Springfield Avenue. And we really are at a curve there, and we're downhill from the properties to the east. And it was a little scary trying to cross the street to take photos back and forth. They do seem to come fairly quickly around that curve. So we, with the unique design of our engineers and our architect, we were able to ensure that nobody has to back out onto Springfield Avenue.
Could you subdivide these into 2 conforming lots?
They would not be conforming in terms of lot size. They would be just under.
Close, okay.
Yeah. We're at about 27,000 and change. Yeah. So the 2 principal buildings on the site, they're also nothing new. We will be, that is what exists now. They're not the most beautiful buildings that exist today. So we would be replacing 2 buildings with 2 new buildings, essentially, that would be more consistent with the character because they would be residential. They would be fitting in with the intended uses of the zone. We would be getting rid of that non-conforming commercial property, which, while I'm not a traffic expert, a commercial professional office space will be bringing in more traffic during the day, just as the very nature of any of those uses. There will be more coming and going from that than there will be from single-family homes, single-family attached homes, I should say. We are matching the scale and design pattern of the neighborhood. The homes to the west of us, we did an analysis, and we're conforming with height, first of all, so we're not going to be any taller than the homes next to us. Again, we have a slope, but it still maintains the height that they are currently built at. And the width of our two homes that are attached are very similar in scale to the existing homes to the west of us. Again, with the topography of the site, it is suitable for the two-family buildings as opposed to single-family individual buildings, and that was testified to by our previous experts in terms of the grading of the site. By stepping up between units, it keeps us from having to have stairs interior, so you wouldn't, if you had to just build one large floor plan, you would maybe have a step up between your living room and kitchen or some other change in elevation within your house. This allows us to keep each home level and not disturb too much of the site. We could have, engineers can design anything, they can flatten any site, but that's not always the best solution and the best practice for a site. We're also on the edge of a non-residential grouping of lots. We do abut, and not only are they non-residential, but they're undeveloped, and given that they are owned by the Board of Education and the City of Summit, they're unlikely to be developed. So we don't create an issue with light air open space. There is no development that will happen next to us. So there's no impact of anybody utilizing that site. It's right up against us, is fairly overgrown and fully landscaped. Again, because we're close, we're within walking distance of the train station, of King's Grocery, and other smaller retail uses. Future residents of our site are going to be able to walk there, that less than 10-minute walk to get over there. It does support the proposal for a slight increase in density. I wouldn't go so far as to say a transit-oriented development, but we are within walking distance or biking distance of amenities. And again, just looking through your planning documents, also generally doing some searches through the market of housing in Summit, there is a desire for housing here. People do want to live here, and I'll talk more about your master plan later, but your planning documents do indicate a need for more of a diversity of housing types and also sizes, so providing a broader range of opportunities for people who want to live here. We also need to prove to you that special reasons exist for granting our D variance. These are derived from the purposes of the MLUL. I will cite purpose E to promote the establishment of appropriate residential densities. Typical zoning will establish area-wide standards that attributes population density through minimum lot sizes. Each individual lot has its certain obligation based on the use, the size of the lot. Looking at the area as a whole, though, we're unique in that we have an undeveloped tract next to us. It is also in the R15 zone, but it is not going to be developed with housing. So we have the potential to really absorb any additional density from that lot and still maintain light space and open, light air and open space, and not crowd too much and be able to provide those the housing diversity. Also, we have neighbors who are similar in density to us. We have several 2 families across the street, as well as the 4-family affordable development. Purpose G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses. Again, we are proposing residential uses in a residential zone, eliminating our non-conforming commercial use. We are consistent in terms of the massing. The architecture renderings, as we saw before, they really do look like 2 single-family homes. They are the square footage of each home is about 2,000 feet, so they're 2,000 square feet. So they're not huge mansions that are taking up too much space and overburdening the property. They do fit very nicely into the context of it. And the density of, again, our neighborhood surrounding us. The site also promotes the free flow of traffic as well as our walkability, and it's appropriate for its location on the Springfield thoroughfare. Purpose I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development. There is an aesthetic benefit to replacing the non-conforming commercial structure with residential uses, especially ones that are designed in such a way to reflect the historic character of Summit and of our neighborhood, but in a contemporary and more modern fashion. The existing setbacks and design, the existing ones are out of scale. The building is pushed way back on site, so we are proposing buildings that are in line with our neighbors. The use of the courtyards and the stepped nature of the site was a way for our team to work with the existing grade without disturbing too much soil as we went. And finally, I'm going to jump back. I always like to finish with purpose A, to guide the appropriate use of development in a manner that's going to promote the general welfare. We are, in addition to everything I just said, which I think does support purpose A, we're also adding modern stormwater management techniques. The site is currently lacking any stormwater management, and given its intense slope and topography, that can create a significant issue. There's a global benefit to cleaning up and modernizing the site, bringing it more into conformity with the character of the neighborhood, and contributing to the diversity of your housing stock. So with that, we have to also discuss the D1 negative criteria, that our proposal will not substantially create a detriment to the general welfare, to your zone plan, and to your zoning ordinance. The 2016 master plan reexamination report that was created reinforced several goals from your 2000 master plan, and several of those are supported by our proposal tonight. The first of which, preserving existing residential neighborhoods and offering a diversity of housing type, balancing growth and development opportunities with the established pattern of development, continue Summit's tradition of providing a variety of housing types, and encourage residential development at locations and densities that are compatible with existing development. Our proposal offers this diversity of housing that, again, keeps coming up. I found minutes from a public hearing when you guys were doing your affordable housing outreach, and what kept coming up was the public wanting different options for housing within the city. So we do feel that with this proposal, we are offering that, even at a small scale. Because of the grade change, we're separated from our neighbors to the north and to the west. Additionally, with the comprehensive landscape plan that was just presented to you, we are creating a nice buffer from both of those neighbors. With some suggestions from your planner, we're going to increase that even a little bit more, so there really does create that separation from us and from them. And again, we don't have anyone to our east, so there is not going to be a detriment on the neighbors around us. I do feel that the density is appropriate. To the chairman's question before about where the 2 families across the street came from, we're not entirely sure how long they've been there. We can tell it's been a while. I do think that your council certainly has opportunities to rezone based on existing land use. I don't know why they wouldn't have rezoned those to be consistent. What I would suggest and what I would put forth is that two-family homes, four-family homes, they're not appropriate for every R15 lot. We would not want to allow on every R15 lot. That's why we believe our site is particularly suited, because of its location, because of its size and topography. And I think that there probably was a similarity when either they were built before the zoning or they had similar reasons that it would be consistent. Our D4 FAR variance, what we have to prove to you is that the site can accommodate the increase in FAR over what is proposed or permitted. So 0.25 is permitted. We're at 0.3205. I believe it was testified to earlier that there's about 7.46% of that FAR that's attributed to our attic space and our covered porches and patio space. The actual interior housing space, the living room, bedrooms, those all come in under the 25% cap. But we do want to make sure that the houses look nice, and the peak of the roof contributes to that. And therefore, we have about 300 square feet in the attic of every unit that is going to count towards your FAR. Same with the patio space and the covered porches. We feel like it's consistent with the Summit neighborhoods that we're in, and generally speaking, they're a nice feature for the residents who are going to live there. So I don't see any problems with this site accommodating the additional square footage. The negative criteria for the D4, I won't reiterate because I do believe it's the exact same as the D1 negative criteria. I don't believe there is a detriment. Our site can support this without causing any substantial harm to the neighbors or to your zone plan. All of the C variances, we will qualify under the C2. The granting of the variances outweigh any detriments. I'm not going to go through these in a huge amount of detail unless you would like me to, because it is late and I have been talking at you for a while, and I understand that, so thank you. But really, if you're going to, I do think they are mostly subsumed into our D1. They're designed for a different type of use. We've already talked about some of the discrepancies between what happens with our combined yard setbacks and how we count the garages. So I do feel like what we are proposing that has already been testified to is a better proposal than what would happen if we met all of those bulk standards. There's a few technical variances that were cited in terms of exceeding the slope, but again, we have reduced our slopes on site from I believe it was 15 down to 12%, and all of the proposals that we've put forth have done everything to make sure that we can accommodate these 4 units in a way that is suitable for your community. And I will stop talking at you now. So.
Thank you very much. All right, unsurprisingly, Ed, the applicant loves their application. I think they're batting 1,000, but anything you think they maybe missed or we'd like to dig a little bit deeper into?
There's a few things I just wanted to ask some questions about. Generally, when you look at, especially a use variance, you look at the overall Medici proofs and you try to establish how this is a better zoning alternative than what exists in the zone. Could you elaborate on that, why you feel this represents a better zoning alternative?
Sure. Let me just go back here. So our 4 families were separated into 2 buildings of 2 units each, so we got our two families. It allowed us to be more creative with the site and provide a design that utilized the changing of the grade without bringing in 7 or 8 foot tall retaining walls. If we were to bring in a single family home on the site, we would have had to level it completely, and it would have caused more slope disturbance and what I think would be a lesser design in terms of how to utilize the various features of the site and how we could step our development into the grade and into the increased slope as we go toward, as we go towards the back of the site. Additionally, I do believe that the aesthetics of our design in terms of the single driveway, but also the safety that comes with that, being able to reduce the number of curb cuts that might be here if we attempted to do 2 single-family homes. I again, the site circulation keeps cars from having to back out on to Springfield Avenue. There's turnaround space within the garages and within the 28 to 30 feet at the top of the site. We can support that circulation without any problems. That a conforming site would, even you can see the existing single-family homes across the street, those homes have to back out onto Springfield Avenue. So we're keeping that condition from occurring.
Talk about the neighboring property to the east as being undeveloped currently, but that it won't be developed. How do you draw that conclusion?
So the property immediately to the east of us is a property owned by the city of Summit. I will retract a little bit what I said because I didn't mean to be so definitive that it could never be developed, but it currently is not developed, and as far as I know, there are no plans to develop it. It does abut the Board of Education property, and right now it is a continuous field. I was able to park in the Board of Ed property and walk towards our site to take photos of the rear of it. My understanding is that the Board of Ed might use it from time to time. I have not been there or seen that happen, but as of right now, it seems to be used continuously with that Board of Ed property. Never say never. Something could, of course, happen in the future. The city could decide to sell it, but as of right now, it seems to be functioning in a state of peaceful landscaping.
You heard the board ask questions, or at least one board member asked a question about the side yard, combined side yard setback. It looks like you're complying with both side yard setback minimums on either side of the property, but that when you look at the pattern of development along Springfield Avenue, and what is the general purpose of a combined side yard setback from the overall standards of laying out lots and locations of buildings?
Sure. In a typical lot where you would have the one building with each a side yard setback on each side, the goal of that is to ensure that you're pulling your massing away from the property line and away from your neighbors on both sides, so that, for example, to use easy math, if you had a 3-foot side yard setback requirement, but you needed to have a minimum of 8 feet for a combined yard setback, that would ensure that one side could be a little bit more flexible if it needed to be, but that ultimately you're still pulling your massing away from your neighbors. In our instance, I do feel like we have met that. There was one of the site plans showed our neighbor to the west, and we are equal distance, if not more, from our side lot line as they are from theirs.
The distances between the two separate two-family buildings, I think I measured 20 feet or about 21 feet between that. Does that establish that same patterning along the street, or is that something of slight inconsistency? Is it detrimental?
I think it's consistent. I think that, and I don't think it's detrimental. I think when you look at the neighborhood as a whole, you see varying lot sizes, which means varying separation between your buildings. So if we were to draw a line right down the middle of our driveway, I think you're right. I think it's about 20-ish feet between the buildings. So we'd have about 10 feet of setback between those lot lines, pulling those buildings away from their neighbors. And I haven't measured the other properties in the neighborhood, but I do believe that 20 feet, 10 on each side, hypothetically, is consistent with what we're seeing with other properties.
You talk about the ability of this to be walkable to, I guess, mass transit as well as the supermarket that you identified.
Mm-hmm.
What is the distance from this location? Did you measure it?
I did. It's...
Is it a 15-minute walk? Is it a 30-minute walk?
No, so it's 0.3 miles from the bottom of our driveway to the King's Food Market, which is a 7 or 8 minute walk. And it's exactly half a mile to the New Providence train station, which is about a 9 to 10 minute walk. Which in the planning world, the half-mile walk, the 10-minute walk, that is really what we consider walkable for most.
Okay, and I believe you addressed the particular suitability of the property and its location. How does that rectify the lack of the governing body identifying this area for two-family lots?
Well, I really do think it speaks for itself, given how unique I think our property is. I don't think, for example, the property to the west of us, or even two to the west of us, would be appropriate for such a development, because of our location next to commercial properties, as well as I'm sorry, not commercial properties, I should say non-residential properties, which are open currently and undeveloped. The size, the topography of our site, the current driveway, the single driveway that already exists, in our attempt to kind of reuse most of that. I really do think even in the neighborhood, while the development and the massing is consistent, I do think the site itself is unique.
Maybe just building on two things there real quick, is the zoning alternative we're comparing this to is essentially what the DRO allows, which would be probably a fairly substantial single-family home.
If you wanted 100% conforming with the zone standards, it would have to be a single lot with one residential unit.
Do you know if a single two-family property or structure was considered for this application?
I cannot say. I was not part of the original schematic design sequences.
Maybe that's something Mr. Weber can cover in his closing. Why four as opposed to two? Why that jump? The second question I had is, I don't know if this should be taken with a grain of salt or offered any kind of merit, but this lot is located in the middle of the R15. It's not bordering the R10 or some other more densely anticipated zone. Is there anything to be said about that, the location of the lot within a zone, that it's not proximate to multifamily or a more dense kind of set of zoning criteria?
I think that it still remains suitable given, again, the fact that there are some existing, probably non-conforming two-family across the street from us and a four-family. Also that we do have the Board of Education right next door, as well as an open city lot, the Unitarian Church that'll be down the way. So I think the site itself within the R15 zone is unique for the zone. There are some uses that you're not going to see anywhere else in the zone. So we were trying to capitalize on that opportunity.
Okay. Dipti was sorry, we jumped from planning back to me. Was there anything you wanted to note?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all right, this is Ed's turf. Any questions then from the board members for our planner? Let your fatigue get the best of you. Go ahead.
I do have a quick question. Do you happen to know the nature of the commercial business that's existing there?
I know it's been
CPA.
yeah, I think it's,
CPA?
it's always been a
I thought it was a
profession.
pediatrician.
Okay.
Used to
I
be
think
a
it's most
pediatrician.
recently been a dentist, but there has been a CPA, was my understanding. But it has been complete, since 1985 when it got its use variance, there has been a professional office active there.
That sees clients?
Yes.
Has traffic?
Yeah.
Yes. I would have to defer to the property owner for more information on that, but they have been active uses. They've been open and seen clients or customers.
Any other questions from members of the board? From the planner? Claire?
Well, I was going to say, Chairman Spur, your questions about the R15 zone just sort of spurred this looking at the tax map. It appears that certainly across the street, the properties are undersized for the R15 zone. I recall that the three properties next to this, 50, 01, 02, 03, were at one time a single commercial property. And I should have known before this, but just looking at it, do they look undersized?
They were subdivided, I think, in 2013, and
Something.
my memory is that they are conforming.
Okay.
Do you have,
They required a variance. They're shy by 2 feet.
oh, there you go, you remember, yeah. So they're,
Okay.
they're like 76, 77 feet wide by about 176 feet deep, so.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any questions from the board? No, let's get out of here. All right, then, Mr. Bowen, any questions for you, for the planner? No, you're okay? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we will allow Mr. Bowen, if you'd like to offer any comments on the application. So positive, negative, we'll swear you in. You can offer, if you'd like to, you don't have to. Sure. We're going to swear you in and let you speak your piece. So,
Hang on one second. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well, it's commentary, so yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Benjamin R. Bowen, B-O-W-E-N.
Thank you.
So I think the architectural plans for the duplex or the two buildings, residential units are really nice. I think the architect and Manny did a great job designing some properties with great street appeal. They seem highly usable and functional and would be in great demand. I have pause about the garages. The garages are, if I think of a 4-bay garage in Summit, I think of Rolf's. So it's like 2 Rolf's in somebody's backyard. So they're quite large, quite imposing, and they bring a whole constellation of problems with them. There's been discussions on how those could be mitigated with semi-permeable pavers, other, gutter systems for the runoff, but simply the mass of the garages in a R15 residential zone seems daunting and something that I don't think has been handled elegantly.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bowen. And I don't think there's any other public comments for this evening? No? Okay. Then, Mr. Weber, like to say anything in conclusion?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, members of the
I
board,
don't mind.
And the Bowens, thank you. Bidens. This is an application that, after hearing all the testimony that's been presented, is asking the board to allow what is a jewel, what could be a jewel on this property, to be constructed. What you have is the possibility of an escarpment, digging into the sides of the hills, putting in a flat space, putting in the single-family home or 2. And as the board is well aware from all the steep slope variances that it deals with all the time, homeowners want that flat yard. They're not going to work with this slope. They're not going to work with this property. You have here, as Mr. Bowen pointed out, as I think everyone has pointed out, this is a very attractive design. In terms of the comment that Mr. Bowen had with regard to the garages, I believe that that will be screened. They're talking a dozen Norway spruces, so that will be screened. And to the extent that there is something that is disadvantageous with regard to that, certainly Mr. Costera will talk with the Bowens. He will communicate with them. Board's question. R15 zone. Real, very nice designed plan is presented to you. Beautiful architecture, private yards, well-designed landscaping, a landscaping plan that is over and beyond probably what this board has seen. So everything here is designed to make a beautiful site. It's R15 zone. Well, this design is not so far removed from what the R15 zone permits. It permits any sorts of public properties, institutional properties. It has allowed any number of diverse types of housing. So when you look at what is being proposed here, you're looking at a type of housing that is unique, that is suitable for this currently commercial mixed-use property. There's no saying as to what would happen if this application is not approved. You still have that commercial use. You still have the ability to have a pediatrician's office. You still have that ability to introduce that as well. And that is a factor that has to be considered. That when you're looking at something that is as attractive as this design, as well thought out as this design is, as suitable for this topography is, and you have what's there now, you know it's an improvement. You know that it advances the general welfare, that this achieves that which is sought after in land use. You want to advance the purposes of zoning, you want to have the reinvestment, and you want to have something that at the end of the day, people go, ah, well, it was a wonderful decision. I submit the application to the approval of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Andy, there were a number of conditions, including something about sawmills and black walnuts or something, but do you want us to do that real quick?
That was definitely a new one. Yes, I have 7 potential conditions total. I'll just note the first 5 were from our prior hearing established back in March. First is our usual compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. I did have a note that with the exception of number 11 at that point, but that was back in March. Has that since been revised? The point number 11 discrepancy there? Or are we still operating off the same memorandum?
Number 11 is regarding regarding the driveway slopes.
Yes.
Yes. So the driveway slope per the new revised plans was reduced to 12.5%. 10% is the maximum driveway slope required per the ordinance. So variance still should be required.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I can remove that exception portion in there. So the second condition then, no bedrooms shall be located in the basement. Third is that the condo association bylaws will include a requirement for snow removal. Fourth is that the condo association bylaws are to limit 2 cars per unit. And fifth, the association bylaws will include a limitation that you cannot park a car except for in the garage. And then the 2 potential conditions from this evening. Sixth is that the applicant shall revise the plans to reflect the drainage line on the west of the property being connected to the dry well system. And 7th was offered. I don't know if we want to impose it necessarily as a condition, but as noted, that black walnut tree being removed from the property will be sent to Castor Sawmill in Sussex County.
I don't know if that needs to be a condition, but if I don't see reference in the resolution, Andy, then I'm disappointed.
I'm not getting a whole bunch of...
It'd be hard to enforce that if they decide to.
Send it anywhere else.
Just a little bit of flavor in the resolution.
Yes, so I think, hearing no objection, I will remove that potential 7th condition. We're left with 6.
Anything you'd like to refine or make note of, Mr. Weber, those 6 before we begin our deliberations?
No further.
Okay, excellent, good memory. All right, Diana, would you start us this evening with your deliberations?
I had some problems with this application the first time around. I do think that the revisions have improved the design, the site plan considerably. I think that I can support it as revised. I like that they, added some permeability to some of the paving, the side doors. I think that those sidewalks went away. And it seems like some of the steepness also went away. So I think the things that we most objected to have been cleaned up a bit. And the neighbors to the rear have a good reason to be skeptical, or at least, on guard that there's going to be, light and headlights kind of bothering them, but it seems to me that there is a very thorough landscaping plan that should completely shroud them and protect their interests. So on that basis, I'll support.
Claire, what do you think?
I'm going to follow up on what Ms. Sager said about the garage, that they are kind of big honking garages. And I wish we had a way almost to retain light management, the way we sometimes retain stormwater management on properties. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a creative plan that is not disrupting the fabric of an established neighborhood, which is what really gets me with some of the D1 variances. I mean, as the planner noted, it's a busy street. There's been it's not, Springfield itself, except for 700, which didn't show up in any of your photos, is not a street of large, gracious homes into which a large single-family house would fit. And as we move further west on Springfield, you've got blocks of apartments. So introducing two-family homes is much more consistent in this R15 zone than in just about any other in the city that I'm aware of. And because the master plan does want to introduce more different kinds of housing, I think I can support this, even though every developer seems to get 4 units into one piece of property. And I find that really coincidental.
Hasn't always been the case with this board, so let's continue to deliberate. Scott, what do you think?
I guess my first comment would be about the light management. This is not a drive-in movie theater that we're approving, so I don't think there's going to be a constant stream of vehicles 24/7 up the driveway. Even when they do come up, it sounds like they've come up with a good plan to mitigate that. But to your point about R15 at a larger scale, I think this comes down to a contextual issue. As a board, how contextual do we want to be, right? If we want to be micro-contextual, yes, you can build a 6,900 square foot single-family home on this site, and this idea that, we're saving Summit from retaining walls and steep slopes. I mean, this entire town is retaining walls and steep slopes. So that's completely nonsensical to me in terms of an argument, and you can see it here in their drawing too. While the houses themselves are stepped, the garages are not. So which is it? Do you need to step this in order to mitigate that, or do you not? I think it's all irrelevant. I think we need to look at this in a bigger context. And Claire talked about that. We have a great diversity of building shapes, types, uses all along Springfield, apartment buildings, as you said, doctor's offices, mansions, single-family homes, two-family homes. So I think that's the proper context to view this site in. And with that, this fits in perfectly, in my opinion. So they've done a fantastic job of getting a lot of housing into a site without looking like it's a lot of housing on a site, and that's no easy feat. So with all that, I would be in favor of this application.
Okay, I'm in. Liz?
You said it all, but I appreciate the landscaping plan and what they're doing to shield their neighbors from light and the garage. So I do appreciate the revised plan, and I would definitely share with my fellow board members.
I mean, anything you'd like to add? Don't have to. Pass it back to Wally then. Wally, anything you'd like to say?
Sure, yeah. As always, we appreciate intelligent stormwater management, so I think you guys did a great job and kind of in the last minutes there integrated some better plans. I really like the fact that I was going to suggest that we have in jurisdiction over the landscape plan, but then you went over it and it was phenomenal, and then I decided not to say anything. So I appreciate the stormwater and also the conscious canopy reproduction and the introduction of natural landscaping and the pollinator mixes as well. So I think you're going to have beautiful landscaping and pretty hummingbirds possibly, and all the nice things that you really want to have in a property and like a beautiful courtyard. So I think it's a great design in a good space, and I think it fits well. So I would approve this application.
Okay. I want to say no. I do. The fact that there's 4 residential units in a single residential unit lot drives me nuts, drives me crazy. But for all the reasons that we have discussed, and the planning testimony was excellent, and I agree the landscape architect was one of the best we've seen. The lot is particularly well suited in terms of its location. Its adjacency to the Board of Education property is, again, unique within the R15 zone, which minimizes any potential negative impact. The size it's oversized, and you've got to do something with that. You can split it up, you can build out to your heart's content. I don't think that the structure that are proposed for this particular, in this particular application abuses the lot size. It's pretty sensible. The topography conversation is very interesting. I never thought that topography could work in the benefit of an application, but here we are, right, learning new things every day. So certainly the lot is particularly well suited for this. Secondarily, it wasn't mentioned before, but the removal of the non-conforming commercial use is important. And definitely a significant positive criteria for this application. Not just is it providing a diversity of residential use, but it's removing, there's a bit of an oddball commercial use kind of tucked up there. I'm sure there's an interesting history. I don't care to hear it tonight at 10:30. But I would call that as a significant positive aspect of this application. So for those 2 primary reasons, really that the lot contextually offers a good opportunity for to accommodate these proposed structures and the non-conforming commercial use being removed, I can support the application. And as for the continued presentation of multifamily applications before this board in single-family zones, that's a policy issue we'll leave to the planning board and the governing body. And through avenues like the annual report, we'll continue to raise that because we're seeing them with increasing frequency. And there is unfortunately, no clear-cut set of rules for us to judge a given application better or worse than the others. It is truly ultimately contextual for what we see here. So with that, and the conditions as noted, I would ask for a motion to approve the application as has been presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Stephanie, the roll call, please.
Sure. Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loigutz?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Sager?
Yes.
And Chairman Spur.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
board members.
Thank you, Sam. I think we only have 1 set of minutes to approve, and then I just have 2 quick comments to make, but we can do the minutes first.
Sure. Okay, we have the minutes from May 1st, 2023. Can we have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, the motion carries.
2 quick notes. With Claire's gentle urging, our webmaster, Stephanie, has updated the zoning board's website to include now the status of the application and the hearing date, so that folks don't have to sort through agendas and calendars to figure that out. So kudos Claire, and kudos Stephanie for figuring out how to do the dang thing. And then the second item is I continue my foray with the governing body and the planning board to have our annual report see the light of day. They've been kind and respectful, but not exactly welcoming, actually, to the presentation of the zoning board at the governing body. I think the idea right now is we would likely have an audience first with the planning board, probably some subcommittees, a small group of members from zoning and planning to come together to discuss, and then potentially go to the governing body. The way I presented just for the governing body is less to kind of hammer on the individual items we're arguing, but more so just to raise awareness that the annual report exists, that there's a mechanism for sharing these findings, and people like the governing body are where they should be resolving it. And cases like the one tonight is, larger policy matters really for them to resolve. So that's your update. I'll keep hammering on that until the next chair.
I can just tell you, 2 weeks ago at council, it was at the end of the council packet, which I think was like 831 pages or something like that, and it did get a mention at the meeting
Jamie,
that it
our
was
council
there.
liaison,
Yes.
did mention it, yes.
Yes.
So that was progress, but we're better than that, and we're going to do better than that. So with that, we are adjourned until June 5th. Wow, see you in June.
Thank you.
Awesome.